for the win. Kick is blocked. And SMU falls on it, and we're going to overtime.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Genty, the Clydesdales are in. Is Genty in? No signal yet. No signal
this is
yet.
So close.
On 4th and goal. Officials are there. Touchdown!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And Reed looking to throw. Nope, not for long. Takes off running and will spin down near the goal line. And they will shove him into the end zone for a touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here comes a trick play and a throwback to Ward. This will help his numbers. A touchdown catch. And his 28th touchdown responsible for. It's the tight end Elijah Arroyo with the pass.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
On 3rd down and 7, here comes the pressure. Retzloff reads it, gets up through it. He's got a first down inside the red zone, still going, and he's gone for the touchdown. 29-yard scramble for Jake Retzloff.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go, 365 Sports on a Wednesday afternoon as we get halfway through the week and just closer to college football, although there was a game last night, a couple of 2 or 3 games last night. Of course, tonight and all the way through into the weekend. We've got news with Texas Tech on their quarterback position, Mike Elko on the A&M quarterback situation, among much, much more. We got an historical note, by the way, about the AP Top 25 poll. I know we're a college football show. I get that, and we will get to all of that, plus our guest today. Anyone see the highlight of the Yankees game last night with the Dodgers with the fan and Mookie Betts?
Hey, you come for Mookie, you come for me.
I thought you were going to say
Bottom line,
that. Yeah.
Look, I will defend Mookie forever. And even though, he's no longer a Red Sox, but he always is in my heart, for sure, that was some bull crap.
Well, the 2 fans were ejected. Mm-hmm. Somebody today, this morning, told me that they thought they were ejected and banned for life. That's not the case on the story that I wrote.
No.
That I read. But that
they've been banned from the next game, though.
Tonight? Game 5?
So, yeah.
Oh, I thought they said they could return to Game 5. But
no, they're out for Game 5.
Well, that's the last home game, no matter what, for this year. But you could. He has the ball, and you've seen it. You probably have. And the fans literally just grab his glove and start ripping the ball out of his webbing. It was just bizarre. I just wanted to start with that because you see poor Steve Bartman, who went through that trauma and did what any fan would probably have done. And then you had the ball where the Orioles outfielder's about to catch it, and someone leans over, a fan. That was just that just kind of was weird.
Okay, but you mentioned that one. Okay, that was Jeffrey Mayer.
Mayer.
Why do I know that little turd's name? Because he gave Derek Jeter a home run. Since that time, there's been it's a small minority of Yankee fans who sit on the wall who believe that is something they should do.
Well,
Austin, the guy's name is Austin Capobianco.
Leave it up to an Italian.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, he's there, but he's a season ticket holder. He sits right there. He told Jesse Rogers, who went and found him at a bar last night, that if the ball comes in our area, we're going to D it up. Well, that's not what you're supposed to do. Poor Steve Bartman was focused on listening to the broadcast. He's sitting there listening to the radio. He sees the ball come. He doesn't do anything. These guys not only interfered, but they could have broken Mookie Betts' wrist. Yeah. And that's a culture that has to stop. And yes, I'm putting an extra pepper on this because it's Yankee fans, but they've kind of had that attitude since '96 about sitting on the wall.
He has said his job is to monitor the wall, to take care of anything in that direction. But I know that's a baseball thing to start off with. But since there's no off the radar today with it, I thought I would open up with that just to see if anyone else saw it.
It's interesting. I mean, it's just it's kind of one of those things. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it. The slow motion video of a guy literally holding on and like reaching in and opening up the glove, it's just kind of disturbing in a way that anybody would think that would be okay to act like that. But then again, if anybody were to do it, it would be Yankees fans, because there's like this entitlement that just kind of comes, this stereotypical entitlement that I think is very real, because you see them after the game, they're taking pictures with these guys like they're newfound celeb, like they're the Hawk Tua girl or something.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure they'll now have like a TikTok account that gets 100,000 followers for their bravery and trying to help the Yankees win a World Series. But you talk about like two stereotypical like SNL parody looking Yankees fans that we'll probably see getting goofed on, Saturday Night Live or something like that. Like, this looked like a skit. It was so absurd and over the top that it looked like a skit of some sort. I had to check, like, is this a YouTube video or is this actually real life? No, it was actually real life. And that was what was probably most disturbing about it, was that anybody thought that would be okay to, if you haven't seen it, literally like hold Mookie Betts' wrist and have another guy peeling into his glove to rip it's like, how in the world was that remotely in somebody's brain as being okay? Like, that was, I don't know. That's the kind of behavior, like some things just nowadays, I'm almost disturbed by kind of how people are acting,
How many times do you now see after each weekend, college or pro, and especially in the NFL, these brawls out on the concourse?
Yeah, I think that's been going on until the end of time. I just think that now there's a lot of people who, I don't want to start sounding like, yes, get off my lawn, but it's very much the internet culture, like of just like famous at any cost, and the come at me bro on every issue known to mankind. Everybody's super hyper aggressive about everything. And I think, this is another one of those instances. But, yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes over. And if I was on the fence before, go Dodgers. I really wasn't, but especially now, so go Dodgers.
He said, I know when I'm wrong, or I know when I'm in the wrong. And as soon as I did it, I was like, boys, I'm out of here. I patrol that wall, and they know it. I saw this part. This is the part where you guys said he's banned forever.
He said he's banned for tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Game 5.
He said that they would be allowed back for Game 5. That's in the story that I read. But yeah, that's tonight. That's Game 5. Game 5's tonight, right? They played 3 in a row.
I do like how the story reads like Major League Baseball told the Yankees to do it. Like they had to say like, hey, you can't let this guy back, right? Like you guys can't. You can't almost break the right fielder's wrist of the opposing team and then let the guy back in for another game so he can potentially do it again.
Yeah.
Because
USA Today, Yankees fan banned from Game 5. ESPN banned from Game 5. Fox News banned from Game 5. So, like I said, they're banned from Game 5.
Yeah.
But
all right, let's get to some college football. Baron Morton will start for Texas Tech this weekend, and they're in need of a win after such a great start, and all of a sudden they lost at home to Baylor. And then, of course, last week it seemed like they had everything in hand and had a chance, even after they'd blown it, to kick a game-winning field goal. Then you had the fumble. Will Hammond, who was at Hutto High School, and we watched him play last year, really, really good player last couple of years, and then the fumble, and that ended the game, or Tech's chance to win that game. So Baron Morton, he's beat up, he's sore, like everybody is right now, but there was the question about whether he would be able to play. He will play coming up in that game this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's good news depending on who you are. I think for Joey McGuire and Zach Kitley and a lot of members of that football team and some of the supporters as well, and they're glad to have Baron Morton back. I think everybody's glad that he's not seriously injured. That's the big thing. I mean, you didn't know when he left the game last week whether this was going to be a lingering thing or whether this was a temporary type of injury, and obviously very temporary that he's back and not missing any action whatsoever. So that's great on that front. And Joey McGuire made it clear when talking in the postgame that he would be their guy if he was healthy over Will Hammond. Although Will Hammond showed some good things in the midst of also some just newbie struggles.
Right.
But I also think that Hammond provided a little something different that excited some people, especially in the midst of a season that kind of feels like it's going sideways all of a sudden. And so there was some excitement that Will Hammond was now going to be the guy. So I think you've got a little bit of a torn opinion that some were kind of hoping maybe he'll be, the guy for a couple games and we'll get to see more of that and just kind of see if he does more for this team. And then there's the side that's like, no, Baron Morton's the guy. He's done a lot. So I think it depends on which Red Raider fan you ask, whether they're happy about the Baron Morton news or not. But that's great for him.
Paul, before you respond, Katie Rader goes, it also say Will Hammond's red shirt, that he won't play much more. At least you don't think so. So that's also an important fact. Katie, thanks for that.
Yeah. Also, I guess it's going to be really hard because Will Hammond came in and he was dealing. He wasn't the reason they lost to TCU. That defense,
fumble was
fumble.
Yeah,
but
they lost TCU.
But yeah, Will Hammond was dealing. So they, I can see people wanting to see him. But the biggest problem that they've had the last few years is that they've had to play 3 quarterbacks every year. I would just rather, for the stability of it, and I know you've lost a couple games in a row, but I'd rather just see Baron Morton back out there, if it were me, to see some consistency in that for at least a whole season.
Yeah, they were winning when he was the starting quarterback. They had that one loss to Washington State. Will Hammonds is going to be a heck of a player, you would think, and they're always going to have quarterbacks at Tech. But in that fumble, he turned around and bam, here a guy hits him right in the chest, and when he fumbled against TCU over the weekend.
I want to make sure I'm hearing Hammond.
Yeah, Will Hammond. What am I saying?
I thought you were putting an S on there.
I am. You are right. It's Will Hammond, singular. But we did see him play. That's true. We saw him twice. It's plural.
I'm just a stickler for trying to get names right. I just think that's a respectful
Why would you
thing.
with a name that's mispronounced a lot when you were growing up?
It's really not that hard to pronounce if you word it out. But anyways, I thought he looked really good in the spaces that we saw him, threw the ball well. He's a very dynamic runner. We saw that in person as well when he was at Hutto, and that's a threat that you saw a little bit last week. But yeah, I think that he's got a really bright future. That fumble was just really unfortunate, untimely that he got caught spinning. But again, that's kind of what he does though. He'll do a spin move, and sometimes that can get you off kilter and make it easier for a guy to knock a fumble loose. So that's the bad that comes with the good. But yeah, he's got a lot of good football in front of him. But that's just, it's like fans root for the second quarterback. That's just kind of natural, and especially the young quarterback. So there's maybe a small portion that would like to see more of him. But yeah, maintaining his red shirt, and if Baron Morton's available, he's your guy. That makes a ton of sense.
And then Texas Tech will be challenged, no question, and maybe they play a game that's a little bit more, I guess, free of errors when they have to play Iowa State coming up. So they turn around after losing a couple of games, and now they're in Ames coming up this Saturday, ESPN at 2:30. Mike Elko, very, what's the word? And in fact, it says we have not made that decision on his quarterback, whether it's Connor Wigman and or Marcel Reed. Reed, of course, got awarded a lot of things, including the Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Award, among others. I think even the Davey O'Brien Award for the weekly winner this week came in and rallied A&M to that great win against LSU, but they have not yet made a decision. Do you feel like that they're just playing coy, or do you feel like he doesn't know?
I think they're probably playing coy. I think they know what they want to do, and it is an interesting situation though, because Connor Wegman against LSU and against Notre Dame, I wouldn't call it like tragically bad or anything. He just wasn't that effective, and Marcel Reed against LSU was. Like, I still think there's some things there, and maybe the offensive scheme and the players around him don't really match his skill set completely, where with Marcel Reed, it just looks like it does because of Colin Klein's offense. So we'll see. I think they actually have I don't think this is a huge problem. I think this is kind of a good problem to have because they've got actually 3 guys, although Jalen Henderson's been hurt, but they feel like can run the ship for them, and most teams barely have one. So they've got a good problem to have here, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of stress or fight going on. It's they're all in the boat together right now. Now, this isn't going to last another year. One of them will be the starter next year, and the other one will probably be in the portal, but I think it's fine for now.
I don't know how this is even really a debate. I think Marcel Reed's the quarterback, and this is gamesmanship, if anything. If not, then I just don't. Maybe I'm just watching the wrong sport or something. Maybe I'm watching the wrong A&M because I don't see how it's really even particularly close right now, given the momentum that Marcel Reed's given you when he's been in there versus what Connor Wegman's given you time and time again when he's been in there. I know Reed's still got some improvement as a true freshman, but that was pretty special last week. So I don't know how you don't roll with the guy who just led a massive comeback in the second half in a quarter and a half of action where you were flailing and dead on the road to losing to LSU. He came in and saved your potential playoff, right? So I don't know how you don't ride with that guy, but I don't know. Mike Elko knows his football team better than me, and I'm sure there is some element of gamesmanship, not only for the opponent, but for his own locker room, of having to handle that a certain type of way to ensure that everybody's happy. But it seems like what Paul said, that they've got a good culture going on right now in College Station, so they'll handle this and not have too much drama from it, I'm sure.
Well, they've already had to change it twice, right? It was initially with then Wigman, and then it was Reed, and then Wigman.
And if Wigman wasn't some big talked about recruit, we wouldn't even be tripping over this. It's the fact that he's expected to be some great player that he has not been at all, but he's shown little flashes here and there. So it's like we're talking about this kid like he's Arch Manning or something, and that's not what it is. So
no, and again, he's not again, I've watched him every game that he's played. The Missouri game, he played really, really well, but they also are running the ball down people's throats, so it's easy to play well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that Florida-Georgia game, which is the biggest cocktail party ever, moving to Atlanta next year, Tampa in 2027 at Raymond James Stadium, and then they'll be back in Jacksonville as that Everbank Stadium is renovated. I went there one time for the Super Bowl when Jacksonville hosted the Super Bowl, and obviously been to Raymond James, and not sure if of course I've been to Atlanta's stadium too. They're renovating, so where are they playing it this year?
They're playing at Everbank.
Okay,
but this has been in the works for a little while because Everbank Stadium needs a rebuild. I can't remember where the Jaguars are going to play over those 2 years.
They're going to play every game in London. They're going to stay in London and play every game in London.
If they weren't going to rebuild that stadium, I would say that's probably what hey, look, Jacksonville can't afford us. Let's go to London. And Roger Goodell would probably love that. But they might play more games in London, or I don't know. They'll figure something out of where they'll play. They might play Ben Hill Griffin. It's a plenty big stadium, just not an NFL stadium. So we'll see. But yeah, so the cocktail party not going to be in Jacksonville. I wonder, because they say it's going back to Jacksonville in 2028. But if it does well in Atlanta and Tampa, Jacksonville will run the risk of losing that thing and it becoming a rotation.
Yeah, that will. Okay, after what we've learned the last 4 years with rivalries being interrupted, or even more than that, because the A&M Texas back in 2012 started to get interrupted, and other particular rivalries, you would think that would never happen. Like Texas OU, I can't imagine they would ever play anywhere else but Dallas. There was the thought maybe they would move to AT&T Stadium. The Cotton Bowl was renovated over the years, but you'd wonder in that case. So I would never say never, but I hope it doesn't leave Jacksonville. That seems to be like a Texas OU in the Southeast. All right. Last night, Texas State beaten by University of Louisiana, 23-17. G.J. Kinney's team is 4-4. Jeff Traylor's under 500 at UTSA. They're not having the years, either one of them, that anyone thought. Sam Houston beat La Tech 9-3 last night. But your thoughts about, guys, Texas State was a team that we thought might win that conference, and they're now looking at 4-4.
Yeah, they've disappointed, that's for sure. And look, you're going to maybe live that life when you have to have so many itinerant players like they do. And this is year one with no Frank Harris for UTSA. So it's been maybe a bit of a jolt to the system. I will say this, that there's two fan bases, one that's very close to us and then one that lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, that were, I think, maybe planning on interviewing those two head coaches for their jobs. At least the fans were. Mm-hmm. But right now, both those coaches look like they're not going anywhere, in Dave Aranda and Sam Pittman, because I think Sam Pittman's pretty much saved his job, and Dave Aranda's got a great opportunity here in the next month.
Yeah, so we talking about Texas State or UTSA here? You're just giving the example of –
I was using an example. They both had high expectations. Both of them, of course, down south of where we are. Texas State, we saw with what G.J. Kinney did a year ago, and Jeff Traylor at UTSA, the run they've had, and they're both right now they're stalled. And in UTSA's under 500. But they played last night, so that's why I thought it was a current topic for right now. They're now 4-4. Louisiana 7-1, unbeaten in the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to make sure I was hearing you correct, because I heard you start talking about UTSA there. So, yeah, I mean, they're similar in that they both had big expectations. Although, I mean, I think UTSA's, in hindsight, were just expectations based on what they've been doing for the last few years and not so much about this actual football team. Oh, Jeff Traylor's team will be good. Why? Because Jeff Traylor, and they've been good for a few years. Well, they just lost Frank Harris, who's been their guy for like 6 years in a row. Yep. So that's going to, matter. They've got a younger player there in Owen McCown, who's running the show now, who's going to be very good and has been very good in some cases, even here recently. And not his fault necessarily that they've lost some of these games. But, yeah, I just think that you had kind of this roster that was for the most part stuck together for a really long time, that was very seasoned and battle-tested and all of those things. And now it's like a brand-new team. And it's puppies, that you're having to raise up all over again, where you had some like grown-ass dogs these last couple of years. So I think that's part of the issue.
You had a full-grown man in the quarterback, Frank Harris.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, they had the whole group basically together. There's some guy like Zachary Franklin eventually left, and so on and so forth. But, for the most part, he had his core. And even then, even the backups got a lot of time because Frank Harris missed a lot of time. But he was that tried and true. So I just think that they're kind of having to reset down in San Antonio, and that's really the biggest issue with them. But as far as Texas State goes, I mean, I don't know if y'all watched the game or not, but Jordan McLeod got hurt. Ishmael Mahdi got hurt, so that
I was going to bring
is going to affect the outcome in a close game like this. And so, based on what G.J. Kinney said, Jordan McLeod is looking like he avoided a serious injury, which is great news because he's obviously a really good player and a big time get for them in the transfer portal from JMU, but. Mahdi had a fumble, got hurt, didn't come back, and those injuries, I think, really bit Texas State as much as anything. And then, who comes in is R.J. Martinez, the former Baylor backup, and he comes in and throws a ball that gets tipped and picked, and that kind of ends any chance they had there at the end. So I think injuries really played a big role in last night's game for Texas State. But to your point, overall, there were guys after 1 week like, hire G.J. Kinney for name a job, like Arkansas, Baylor, like anybody, because he's young. That's basically what – he's young and he wears his hat cool. And so let's hire him.
He has an offense that's high.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the offense is the biggest thing. But I don't know. I still feel like he's got some big skins on the wall that he's going to have here in college football as a coach. But I did feel like that was a little bit premature and just a matter of people wanting their guy gone versus more or less actually – really thinking G.J. Kinney's that guy just now. He's close, but I think this year, it's been, not what you expected whatsoever. They've been thrown a few losses that you were not anticipating looking at the schedule before the year. So it's been a lot rougher of a go than we thought.
Louisiana's 7-1 too, so they're pretty good. Yeah, I was going to mention those guys, R.J. Martinez, but Ishmael Mahdi last year had 1,331 yards rushing, 10 scores. He's got 728. Injured late in that game, 3 touchdowns this year, so he's not having quite the year.
He used to be on my superlatives list every single week, it felt like last year, and he hadn't been on there a single time. Maybe one, and it was early in the year.
Oh, you mean Mahdi?
Yeah.
I'm looking at his games. He had a pretty good game against Arkansas State, 164 on 17 carries.
No touchdowns. He's only had 3. In fact, what I'm saying, he has not
one
produced
last night. Yep.
As much as he did last year for whatever reasons, and hopefully he's not too banged up after whatever it was that knocked him out of that game last night.
All right, so the AP poll comes out every, Monday? Or is it, no, I think that one comes out on Sunday. The coaches poll too, but the AP poll comes out on Sunday. It doesn't have much more of an impact than now discussion. It used to decide for dozens of years, decades, who won the national title. Like the coaches poll had their own, but that's changed to BCS and now where we are. But a note about this, college teams that have been ranked in a decade every single year. Now, I was thinking, that means they were ranked every year for 10 years during the decade. Michigan in the 70s. Alabama, of course, when Saban took over and became evil for Alabama in a fun-loving way. Nebraska in the 90s, Florida State in the 90s.
Those were the days.
God almighty, they were. It were 25 years ago. The most ranked in every poll as far as if you just they've been ranked, all of them, look at them. any surprises there? There's nobody that jumps out. But there's Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Texas, Georgia, Penn State, USC, Florida State. Now, obviously, Nebraska and Oklahoma are Nebraska's been in a bad stretch for a decade. Oklahoma, 2 of the last 3 years. But that's just a note about those who have been ranked the most during, ever. And there we are with that.
So that's cool, but basically take the headline, most years ranked, and just replace it with literally anything else, and that'd still be the same 10 teams.
No, yeah.
I mean, that's...
Yeah, it would be wins, bowl games,
championships,
Heisman Trophy winners, maybe.
Draft picks.
Yep.
It's the same teams,
Yep.
For the most part. There might be 1 or 2 you switch out, but that's the only thing I have when there's all these, that's a cool note, don't get me wrong, but
no, you just tore it apart, basically.
No, but oftentimes with college football, you look at the most anything, and it's you can guess 9 out of the 10 teams because it's the same teams historically. But
no, you're right.
That's a hell of a level of consistency that, you'd think that would be pretty easy to be ranked, one time in a decade just to keep that going?
Yeah.
And the fact that so few have done that's actually kind of surprising because...
No, it's ranked every year during a specific
ranked
decade.
Okay, sorry, that's where I misunderstood.
Every single week for 10 consecutive years.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah, but again, it's the same teams you would think. Florida State and Nebraska in the 90s, the runs that they had with Bowden and Osborne. And then the only team... that is, Michigan, that was Bo Schembechler, and then he, of course, seceded, eventually moved. But I didn't know, but that makes sense. I thought there would be more teams that were ranked every single poll for a full decade. I thought USC might be in there, Alabama a couple of different times, Oklahoma, but that's not the case.
That's also the top 10 recruiting rankings. That's also you can go on and on and on. But I do appreciate what you're really trying to do is make us as Florida State, Nebraska, and Oklahoma fans feel better about our programs in the midst of whatever the hell this season has become. So that's what you're really trying to do, and I see you, and I feel you on that.
Well, Nebraska would not be a part of that on rankings, on recruiting.
No.
They were rarely ever a part of that. They did
it because 8 or 9 out of the 10.
Kansas and Iowa State and K-State fans and all the others who hated them, they were cheating because they had the Prop 48. But you know what? I wish they'd cheat again.
Here's what everybody talks about. Look, Nebraska did a couple things really well when it came to recruiting under Tom Osborne. They could go in and find a superb athlete from California or Florida or Texas that would get behind their big offensive line and be a star, right? They did that really well. But they also had a corner on the market of the best and biggest offensive and defensive line on the country who – the 10 best linemen in Nebraska only wanted to go to Nebraska every single year. So everybody, or really in the Midwest, in any of those states.
And Texas, they pulled a few people from Midland, et cetera.
But they had that where, even Ohio State could go into, Omaha and be like, hey, we'd like you to be our left tackle. And they're like, Tom Osborne was here 6 months ago. He said hello to my grandmother and offered me a scholarship. Yeah. So go screw.
They had an advantage. They had an advantage. They were able to put guys away in the redshirt program, freshman team. They did, but that wasn't against the rules at the time.
And that was the case for a lot of teams. They were Tom Osborne was just really great at that. But I don't think that's the case for anybody anymore.
No.
Again, you're going to have your recruiting advantages, but there's not going to be – I guarantee you the times that coaches go in to – a place thinking we're going to have this kid locked down. His dad went here. His mom went here. That's where they met. And it's hey, how would you like to come to Auburn? They're like, oh, no, I'm going to Georgia. I'm sorry. I don't really care about Auburn. It doesn't matter to me.
UT Parking, I said this, and then he put this and I had fun with him. The AP and UPI used to mean something back when radio was a major way to catch the games. Nowadays, the AP is about as useful as toilet paper, especially since some AP voters are non-ball knowers. That's what I said. You missed that part. That's exactly right. It doesn't mean as much other than discussion, maybe a little bragging rights, but in the end, none of them matter because they don't decide the national championship.
I mostly agree with that. I think you saved it for me when you said it doesn't matter as much because I still think it matters. I still think it matters for records purposes. I still think it matters for positioning purposes, even though the playoff goes in and eventually does their thing. But the whole time these games are being hyped up, what are they using? They're using the AP ranking.
Oh, no.
That's
Garrett, do you have the list of games this weekend? You're
so
exactly
as
right.
much, but the whole reason we're like, hey, it's number 11 versus 14. That's the AP ranking. It's number 6 for 7. That's the AP ranking. So they still matter to some degree, but as much, no, they don't matter as much, but there's still, a bit to it that does matter. And I do think that there are some very questionable decisions. I understand the whole, this is what it reminds me of, is that you can't criticize college officials. People try to get on AP voters, and immediately it's like some newspaper reporter's like, I'm working all day Saturday. I can't possibly be asked to watch all of these games and know it completely. But, you can look at records, and there are some decisions that are made when they put the polls together and you see how everybody voted. You're like, how in the hell did you come to that conclusion? And there's a lot of, really suspect positioning of teams sometimes that normally does not go the way of the teams that aren't the biggest brands. And that's what bothers me about the AP poll, is just the guys who clearly aren't paying attention, or they just are never going to give the benefit of the doubt to the school that's not 100 years of history. You know what I mean? Iowa State has to win twice as much to get the respect that Auburn would get, or, an Alabama would get. And I have a problem with those voters. But that's why I think it's good, unlike college football officiating, that we can see the polls each week. So you can go see why this guy has South Carolina at 24 versus having that. So there is some culpability, and I do appreciate that transparency.
All right. Well,
when it comes to the poll.
All right. Well, in the chat room, I know of some of you who have texted me, more than one, who have texted me when a poll comes out because you're a little frustrated where your team might be ranked, or how could they. So you care. Listen, I hope my team is among those ranked, and they were for a week or two, and that's it. But for the most part, the last decade, they have not. It is still it's a bragging right. It's like, hey, we're in the top 5. And if somebody, I've seen the reactions when the polls come out. How in the world can anyone not have so-and-so and so-and-so? Or how are they not ranked high enough or not? So people still do care about it.
No, they care because they still matter, though. That's what I'm also saying, is they still matter. They matter from a perception standpoint. They matter in terms of the TV draw when you have that number next to your name. So it's a big deal to still have that. It matters in your history books. It matters, Oklahoma, or name a team, has inevitably at some point put out a graphic of most appearances in the AP top 25. I know, granted, college teams, they promote anything that's good news. It's Jerry 7 on Twitter said we're the top 7th best team of all time. College literally will promote anything that appears to be good news from anybody. Al Jazeera says that, Texas football is the 5th. They'll promote anything. But I do think in the case of the polls, that is a lot of promotion, but it is also a lot of perception. And I do think perception matters, and it's clear that some leagues, some teams don't get as much of a benefit of the doubt when it comes to that perception and therefore promotion and hype as other teams do.
Garrett, do you have the bangers? We have what I call bangers, right? Top 25 bangers. This is for this weekend. There's only 2 games. Sometimes there's 4 to 5, and this is number 4 against number 3. It's a banger. Banger means 2 teams, both of them, that are ranked in the top 25. We use that. Pitt, of course, at SMU is also yet another part of the top 25. So there we are with that.
I sure hope Eli Holstein's healthy, because otherwise that Pitt SMU game is not nearly what it's supposed to be.
Jennings is also a little,
and he's also not very good. Last we saw him, that could be health as well. But yeah, he was not on a good one when we last saw him either. No,
he has a standard to live up to.
Oh, once he broke
it's not the name on his jersey, the 3 letters of SMU. It's the fact that he was on our show.
Yeah, he does.
Well, he's got to stop turning the ball over so much, but he's also got to get healthy. So, yeah, I want to see Kevin Jennings versus Eli Holstein at full health. I don't know that's what we're going to get, though, on Saturday, which is unfortunate because that's obviously a big game. A lot of the reason why, because it has got those, you wouldn't mention the game as much if it didn't have those rankings next to it. So again, perception and positioning and all those things, those rankings still do matter. They're just, the way they don't matter is they don't determine necessarily the playoff field or you getting into the playoff. But
I wonder if they have any kind of discussion or influence when they're having the college football playoff committee meetings.
I think wins over top 25 teams. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to say they don't matter is so. For example, you're BYU. You've played SMU and K-State. Those are 2 top 25 wins that you have. You have no others remaining on your schedule that I can recall off the top of my head. And if you're the Big 12, granted, you don't really have a lot of teams that are necessarily deserving of that. based on what we've seen. Like, look who's on their schedule. None of those teams deserve to be top 25. So there's nothing you can do about that. But if there were a team that's borderline that doesn't get the benefit of the doubt that Vanderbilt gets in or somebody else, well, that's maybe a third or fourth top 25 game that BYU would have that they're not getting because the perception of the polls is not favoring. That's why it matters. And, like, so I think I've highlighted like 10 reasons why they still matter.
Yep.
But I'm just saying, like, luckily that's not the poll that determines the playoff field.
No.
So that's the good thing.
Well, yeah, because forever and ever you could have split championships, like in '97, Nebraska, Michigan. That's not the only year. Roger the Dodger, the committee uses the AP when it helps their narrative.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing. So what are top 25 wins? Are they wins that they were ranked at the time, or are they wins?
See, that's a great question.
Well, no, but is it at the time? Is it at the end of the season? What is it?
What do you think it should be?
All I know is what it is whatever fits that person's narrative. That's literally the answer to this question. That's what it is, though.
I've seen it positioned as if they are 5-2 against the top 25 that is current. But what if a team was really, really good early and they were ranked in the top 10 and you beat them, and then they lost a quarterback or their main guys and they fell into a slump and they end up out of the top 25?
Here's your answer. It's whatever's the better metric.
Yeah.
That's what they use.
Yeah, I think we should go back to BCS rankings like a month into the season. Do those for weeks and weeks. No rank, like I would love to see no rankings. Preseason number 1, it means nothing, but then it carries weight. Preseason number 1, preseason number 5, they were this. And here's the other thing you hear a lot. Oh well, when Ohio State beat Wisconsin was number 10. But if Wisconsin lost 7 games after that, they were never number 10.
No,
but
that's
they were when they played them.
So
that's the thing that we have to get rid of because that's a false number.
Yeah.
Well, they were number 10 when they played them. The only reason that they would still be technically, if they were at full strength and they had a great team, and then in the subsequent weeks, like what happened with Oklahoma State a couple years ago where literally everyone got hurt and they were down like 27 scholarship players to injuries, then you can be like, okay, well, that was a Wisconsin team we thought would be really good, but all 3 quarterbacks got hurt. They didn't have a running back. Their offensive, like all those things happen. Okay, but that's a rare thing. It should just happen later on when we have actual proof.
It depends on the narrative they want to explain to you, Craig.
Yeah.
You have a story there?
I mean, when we get to it.
Well, we got to go because we have a guest in 5 minutes, so go ahead.
All right. Well, this was from Football Scoop a little while ago, but the Big 12 is looking into security issues with their headset communications that go from the coaches to the players. New technology being used this year. The conference has asked all 16 members, to return their coach-to-player communication equipment after reports that teams could listen on opponents' conversations. So that was reported by The Athletic today. According to The Athletic, there were issues with operational security that became apparent during the A&M Arkansas game. So that, if you'll remember that story from back in September, or actually that was like a month ago. Yeah, September. And so all the conferences got notified about that at the time period. But then this cropped up here recently, I guess, concerns raised on Tuesday within the Big 12, which led to the league asking every school to return their equipment, and it will now be outfitted with new encryption technology to fix the issue. And they hope that everybody will have sent their stuff and received it by the time games kick off this weekend, but all the schools have been told to provide an alternative just in case they don't get the equipment back. Nobody has accused anybody of cheating, according to The Athletic, but I've already had somebody reach out to me that apparently there's a Texas Tech fan or fans that are saying that Baylor did this. So that's what the anonymity will lead to.
By even bringing that up, you give credence to that story. I mean, but you're right. I saw.
I guess it happened 2 years ago in Lubbock as well. I don't know.
Yeah, but what you said, not investigating any accusations of cheating related to the helmet communications, nor has anyone been requested by any members. An official of the Power 4 conference has said they have notified their schools beginning in October, and none have reported issues and or concerns. But that's you wonder, with all the technology and communications and all the headsets, and players have the ability to listen to their coach, if that's a possibility, that someone could start to have a chance to hear what they need to hear. All right, when we come back, Taylor McCarg, his football team has a new head coach or an interim coach. We'll have him. Also, Brian Newberry, the head coach at Navy, will join us. Jordan Navar, who played at Baylor during their really good run back in the early 2000s, he'll join us. We'll have the Four Corners Big 12 pod. Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network, and Paul's Top 5. Please click the like button if you haven't already. We appreciate you, and this is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Used to be? 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It's part of growing up, getting older. It's part of father time taking control of things. Some have it, low testosterone, and some don't. So Dr. Petty can help increase your testosterone level, but how does he know if he needs to? Contact them, pettycliniclowt.com, or call them. The number's on the website. And then they will set you up to get your blood work. Take care of that appointment. And after Dr. Petty gets the blood results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can be the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
It's Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Rule the road in a brand new Ram 1500 with an amazing 20% off MSRP. Or drive away with 0% financing for 72 months. Incredible savings right now at Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Another So-So pizza from So-So's Pizza? But wait, there's Marco's! Our new triple pepperoni Magnifico pizza is stacked with classic, crispy cupped, and new bold shredded pepperoni. It's triple the flavor, and only at Marco's. Just $11.99.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Taylor McCart, ESPN and CBS college football analyst, joins us on 365 Sports. And news that of interest to Taylor is Rice has fired their head coach, and obviously they had the nice win against UTSA, which it appeared maybe was going to put them in a nice direction, but didn't work out. And Taylor, your thoughts about your alma mater changing coaches?
Yeah, first thing, head coach Mike Bloomgren, it was always great to me. I think just as a person, nothing but good things to say about him, and wish him, the best of luck in his next stop, wherever that is. And it's unfortunately it is the nature of this line of work, right? I mean, how often do we talk about this time of year, different people's jobs? And I think it's easy, and I'm guilty of this, to kind of be flippant about talking about this stuff, but then you realize, this impacts more than just the head coach. Who these guys, they do make a lot of money at the very top, but this goes all the way down to your recruiting staff, your on-campus staff, and this impacts all of their families. And so I hate to see him be let go just from the human perspective, but you're 24 and 52 during his time there, and there wasn't a winning season. And it was in a seventh year where I think the results, the win over UTSA, going into the season, if you said you beat UTSA, that's great. But I think UTSA is kind of shoulder to shoulder with Rice as one of the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the American Conference. And so, it's a place that there are a lot of challenges to win at Rice. The academic standards are tough. It's not a place that's going to be overly supportive in the NIL era, but that doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities out there. And I think in the American Conference specifically, the expectation is to be getting to a bowl game, if not every year, every other year, and having winning seasons, being on the outside, having an outside shot at conference championships every few years. And that just wasn't really happening. And I think that's kind of the minimum expectation, and that wasn't being met. And I can tell you just from the pulse of the alumni, there were not many supporters by this point. I think the offense specifically, and Bloomgren being an offensive-minded coach, really not a lot of success, a really hard time developing high school talent. Most of the starters that had come in and had success tended to be transfers. And at a place like Rice, I think still a believer in you have to recruit well from the high school ranks, and that wasn't really happening.
Taylor, what do you see as his immediate future? Does he maybe go back to being an offensive line coach for a little bit?
Yeah, I think he had experience in the NFL. He was offensive coordinator for Stanford during some of Andrew Luck, and was there when Christian McCaffrey was there. And I think there is no doubt that he can drop in, and whether it's at the NFL level or high Power 4 level, he could be a great O-line coach. And I think it's very likely in the next few years he'll be back as an offensive coordinator soon. And then maybe, who knows, gets another shot at being a head coach down the line, and wish him, obviously, again, the best of luck. But his experience up until, his time at Rice, ton of success, and a really well-respected offensive line coach. And I'm sure he will land somewhere soon.
Taylor, I know we typically talk a lot of big games, but as far as the big brands, but the teams like Boise State and UNLV, and especially with that game last week, I think that's where we deserve to start off, because I know you got a lot of love for the lesser known schools or lesser promoted schools as well. What were your thoughts on what was a pretty big game last week, and a game where Ashton Jeanty didn't go crazy but still had respectable numbers and ultimately helped Boise State get a big win?
Unbelievable game, first and foremost, and I think UNLV, credit to Barry Odom and that team, and Haj Malik Williams, he played pretty well. I think they're obviously Ashton Jeanty deserves a ton of credit, and I know he didn't have the yards per carry wasn't what we had seen in the past. I thought UNLV had a pretty good plan for him. He still ended up with well over 100 yards for the game. But I think the thing that stands out to me more and more as the season goes along with Boise State is that front seven, their defense. I've had a couple games this year in the Mountain West where I've had to go back and watch film really in detail of Boise State, and they just do such a good job of creating havoc at the line of scrimmage. And Haj Malik Williams, it felt like every time he dropped back, it was a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds, and he had somebody in his lap. And I go back to, watched a lot of tape of Washington State and their film earlier in the year. That's a ranked team now that is playing really well. They lost by 3 scores at Boise State, and they had pressure on John Mateer all night. So I think that's been a calling card for them. And I think as the season goes along and Oregon continues to play well, I think Boise State is a group of 5 team that I don't want to give some crazy splashy headline, but as the season goes along, it does feel like this could be a team that if you said who has a shot to get a win in the playoff, I think they're probably your best bet because they play really good defense and they run the football well. Now, they would need some help, likely going on the road in a playoff scenario, but that's a team I promise you any at-large bid that makes the playoff does not want to play Boise State because their brand of football and having a Heisman, what looks like is going to be at a minimum a Heisman finalist, you do not want to have to play them in the playoffs.
Taylor, the big game nationally this week, Ohio State, Penn State. Can James Franklin finally kind of make the statement that, look, they're probably a playoff team anyway, but nobody's going to have any faith in them unless they win a game like this?
I think Penn State hasn't this always been the story, right? Since the playoff came around, that Penn State seemingly almost every year ends up 10-2, and their losses were to Michigan and Ohio State, and they make a New Year's Six bowl, but they're not in the playoffs, and that's been the case every single season. I think this is the type of game where if they win, you talk about Penn State taking that next step, like you mentioned, where, okay, this all of a sudden becomes a team that we're talking about. Can they win the Big Ten this year? Can they end up having a bye in the first round? I think this is a playoff team pretty much regardless. But if you're a Penn State fan, this is the exact scenario it feels like we've seen them in so often under James Franklin. And I think a lot of this is going to depend on, can Drew Aller go? He had the knee injury a week ago, tried to come back in the third quarter. Back up in his place, played well. But I think for Aller, can he go is going to be huge against Ohio State. And for Ohio State, this is a big spot for them to try and get a big win on the road after they lost. I know it was close to Oregon, but another big shot. And I promise you, Ohio State is thrilled that they're playing this game early. It's kind of, in my opinion, a travesty that they're not playing this as a night game and getting that Penn State whiteout game, but it's a big spot for Ohio State.
Taylor McCarg with us, CBS and ESPN on 365 Sports. Taylor, the Big 12 has 3 teams right now that are trying to separate. There's a few that are saying, hey, don't forget about us, and one of them is Deion and Colorado and a win against Cincinnati and where they are. Your thoughts about, one, they're bowl eligible. Now they're inside the top 25. How much of a ceiling did you think they had before the year started?
Man, I'm one of the people absolutely that's having to kind of eat my words as the season's gone along. I thought for a while now that Travis Hunter, that this would limit his Heisman odds because I thought this would end up being a 6-6, 7-5 type of team. I just didn't think they played with enough physicality, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And that has just not been the case. This is a good football team. They are playing well. They are playing physical. And it really grabbed my attention when they went on the road a couple of weeks ago, or 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and went to Central Florida and mauled Central Florida. And as the season has gone along, you can tell they are finding an identity and playing with more and more confidence as the year goes along. And I think there is absolutely a path for them to not only make it to the Big 12 championship, but to win the Big 12 championship. And then at the top, it's been, I think, the story of the season for the Big 12, just the surprise in look at where these teams that are at the top now, where they were ranked in the preseason, and where all the teams that are at the bottom were ranked at the preseason. It's basically just flipped on its head. Kansas and Oklahoma State at the bottom, they were ranked right at the top coming into the preseason. BYU, I think, was like 12th, 11th or 12th coming into the season in the Big 12 preseason rankings. And now all of a sudden they've got some of the best odds in the country to make the playoffs. So it's been fascinating to kind of watch as this season has played out. But yeah, no doubt about it. I've had to eat my words, and what I thought this team for Colorado was going to be and what they looked like in the first couple of weeks is completely different than my perspective of them now.
Do you think there's really a big decision to make for Mike Elko in terms of Marcel Reed versus Connor Wegman after the heroics of last Saturday? And how do you think that's best handled, I guess?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Marcel Reed comes in and he only has to throw the ball twice. And against LSU, he benefited tremendously from the turnovers that A&M's defense created. I believe his first two possessions when he came in, they had great field position, I know, both times, but I think it was inside the 30 both times. And the first one, I think, inside the 10. So anytime you come in as a backup spot, you're trying to create that spark. They certainly did that, but I think that was aided by A&M's defense and creating those takeaways. I think Elko's comments about Wegman and going to his aid and saying, look, as a team across the board on offense, we were not playing well. We weren't calling the game well. We didn't feel like we were coaching the game well. Receivers weren't responding, and Wegman wasn't playing great. And that's when you go to a backup spot. It's the same thing Texas did a couple of weeks ago. You're trying to create that spark. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? Texas brings Arch Manning in and he spikes a couple balls in the dirt, and then Quinn Ewers is back out in the third quarter. So I think for this week, I would go with Marcel Reed. I think his ability to run the football, it's a similar style to what we were just talking about with Boise State, but for Texas A&M, play good defense, create some takeaways, and run the football effectively, and don't turn the football over, because that's something, this front that they're about to go face with South Carolina, it's one of the best fronts in the SEC. I know it's not a great team, but they've got to figure out a way to protect the football, run the football well, and this is the absolute definition of a trap game going to South Carolina this week for A&M.
Taylor, we talked, I know, a little bit about the Big 12 earlier, but there's coaches in the Big 12 that were on the hot seat, off the hot seat. Two of them kind of played each other this week. People were questioning Sonny Dykes and the way that TCU was playing, and Dave Aranda entered the year on the hot seat. They played each other this weekend. Would you say that they're off now, both of them, given the way that they've kind of rallied here?
I don't know that I would say that for Dave Aranda yet, and you guys may disagree, but I still think there are some opportunities that are out there ahead of them that Baylor could end up with a 8-4. I think that probably are they going to win out? No, I don't think so. But where is that temperature right for Baylor? Is 7-5 good enough for Dave Aranda? I don't think 6-6 is. For Sonny Dykes, that was a humongous win against Texas Tech. And now all of a sudden TCU, I saw some stuff this week, TCU fans starting to kick around what would it look like to win out the rest of the way. If they end up in a spot where they just have two Big 12 losses, can they make it to the Big 12 championship? You're starting to really get some hope. And that was a huge win over Texas Tech, and the way that they did that in the fourth quarter. I think for TCU, my opinion, from the outside looking in, for a team that was literally in the national championship 2 years ago and having to totally recreate themselves, I don't think a change is made with TCU and Sonny Dykes. But for Dave Aranda, and again, you guys and your listeners will probably know this better than I will, but I don't see a way that 6-6 is good enough. I think the expectations are too high in Waco, and I don't know that this team is good enough to get to win out and get to 8-4, which in my opinion is probably the mark that they need.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think
that's very fair. I think we don't really know. I don't think we really know. I think it might be the style of 6-6. Taylor. Is 6-6 with you losing your last couple of games, or is it winning? I think it all just depends. But yeah, it's still very much in the air, I feel like.
Yeah, and the challenge, coming down the stretch, obviously this is a huge spot this week, and getting TCU in Waco is massive. Going to Morgantown is always tough to play. You have to imagine they win at Houston. But I think the last 2 weeks, you guys make a great point on what does the style look like. You go to Houston and close out the season against Kansas. Those are two games that I don't think there's any question that Baylor should win both of those games, especially getting Kansas at home. By the end of the season, they'll be they're not going to make a bowl. If Baylor loses either one of those to Houston or Kansas, I think that's going to be a terrible taste in the mouth for Baylor fans. If they end up going 3-1 the rest of the way and get to 7-5, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's not a change that's made. But I just go back to the temperature and the feeling for alumni and fans. It felt like all offseason and through this season. I don't know how many Baylor fans would say that they're satisfied right now. And if you end up at 7-5, is that enough with some of the opportunities that were out there earlier in the season, blown leads on the road against Iowa State? I don't know. Again, we'll see. But the last 2 weeks, I think that's going to be the biggest tell is how does Baylor play against two of the teams that are going to end up being the bottom of the conference.
Yeah, we had some conversations about what would be the minimum wage, so to speak, on what the bar. And we don't know. Don't get to talk to Mac hardly ever. Used to be able to talk to him. No, I mean, we don't. I get a chance to, visit with him. Not that he would, say something on the record. But, okay. Who do you have this week?
We got a bye week. We are in a spot in the season where CBS didn't have a ton of product this week, and they swapped some stuff around. So I am hanging out at the house, going to be watching well, unfortunately, I got to go to a toddler's birthday party. But then I will be watching football after that.
Unfortunately,
did he say unfortunately?
Unfortunately,
we record the show.
Those things are, top to bottom fun. It's like a kegger, but without any of that stuff.
I don't think we're going to the same toddler birthday party that you are.
No, I don't envy that. It's one of those things where it's forced. You're kind of in there. You hope you got a friend in the room, but once you walk in, you're starting the clock, aren't you?
Yeah, there's no doubt. But we'll get a chance to these are some of our best friends. So God forbid they hear this. Love you, JP and Michelle. Excited to celebrate your daughter, and we'll have a great time. But no, I'm looking forward to watching a ton of football this weekend.
Enjoy, Taylor. Thank you very much for your time as always. Great timing, unfortunately, because of Rice changing their coach, but also the access he has and the games he does to college football and the fact he played the game as a quarterback at Rice. When we come back, Jordan Navar, former Baylor tight end, they celebrate 2013 and 14 Big 12 championship game Saturday night at McLean Stadium. We'll hear his feedback on that and more. And this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club. They over the last few weeks, they've had what they've called tasting events with the chefs that they have. That the cuisine is absolutely delicious. I've eaten there, and not a lot. Paul's eaten there quite a bit. His mom's a member, but I've always enjoyed their food. I've also always enjoyed the options you have, whether it's a setup that's maybe a buffet and you got the prime rib and all the things, and their seafood is shrimp. I love shrimp. I could eat shrimp pretty much in anything. Has always been delicious. Mike Mosel, the general manager, they have fantastic food. The amenities are there. You can feel like it's a really just a really classy dinner, or you could also have something where you're eating because you're having a meeting with a client or somebody that you work with. They have even rooms if you need to kind of get away, have a little bit more peace and quiet to discuss perhaps any kind of proposals or events. And events, they host them, a lot of them, a bunch of them. Baylor's there a lot with a lot of events that they have from various things, from kickoff luncheons, etc. But also, they have events like the one we host in May, honoring great student athletes in Greater Central Texas. And that is one that, in fact, I've already set up the event for next May. And I got that this week confirmed for May 14th of next year. It's the Baylor Club. Amenities, great food, events, and more. Views of inside McLean Stadium. For more information, memberships available. Contact many people, including their general manager and Mike Mosel.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and
tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Hey, tomorrow, David Marshall, who's a part of Baylor's roster, a veteran, 26-year-old defensive end, and he's only played at one Division I school. He played junior college ball, or attempted to, at Navarro. He was in the Army for 3.5 years. We'll have that interview tomorrow with us on 365 Sports, but we're now joined by a veteran himself, a good friend of ours for a long time, Jordan Navar, former Baylor tight end, joins Craig and Paul, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Man, you look like lean.
Yeah. You're not the first person to tell me that. I've lost about now 20, 30 pounds since playing days. So,
is that because you're not on the supplements anymore, or stuff that you're always having when you're playing football, et cetera?
No, I think it's because I got a 2-year-old that I constantly chase around. So, but no, it is. It is. Once you get done playing, it's like the old lineman. You stop eating as much, and it just wears off you quick. So. I can't lose any more, else I'll look way too skinny.
You guys just had another kid, right?
Yeah, we got a 4-week-old now, so I got 2 boys. So,
hey, congratulations!
Yeah,
congratulations. Both set records in the height chart, so we're good there.
So there's those jerseys from your wife, and she played at Baylor, and of course you did. Part of those championship years at Baylor. They're celebrating 13 and 14 this weekend. Saturday night, there's, of course, events on Friday and even Saturday morning, afternoon. What does this mean to you as a former player and all the others?
Oh, it's just exciting. All of us guys, a lot of us haven't been in touch in a couple of years, and now just Baylor bringing us back and getting us all together. We've got in touch. We're constantly texting. It's just an opportunity to come and celebrate and relive memories that, you don't forget. And I don't think people that have never been a part of a sports team that's won championships don't realize how precious those are when you get to, back together with all those guys that you shared countless memories 24/7 working out. So it's unique. And so we're excited.
You guys, it's TCU. It's the big rival. You were kind of the last team that was on top of that TCU rivalry. How much? Just not even the fact that there's some coaches that coach you guys on the other side and all that goes into it, but the fact that it's the TCU game make it that much more fun.
It is. It is. It was considered our big rivalry. When we were playing, and there was hate. A lot of teams hated us at the time, and that's what happens when you win. So that's what we always said. But it became a big deal. And so for this game, we know it will be huge and big. And, yes, there is a couple coaches that coached me and coaches I coached with when I was in college. So it's a weird dynamic, but I'm sure it's going to be a great atmosphere, and it'll be a fun game.
Jordan, in your last Baylor TCU game, you left before 61-58, but you were part of 41-38 in those back-to-back classic games. That win in Fort Worth, I know you had a few catches in that one. Just what are your memories of what was, one of what has been a lot of back-and-forth late-game all-timers between these two programs?
The senior year, that was a big game because we did a little bit different stuff with me offensively. But I just remember defensive, Maud and Orion Stewart making huge plays at the end. My sophomore year, it being the first year ever playing and first game with RG3 and catching my first pass to the touchdown, that I'll never forget that moment, that environment. After that, I felt like I could do anything, play in any scenario, especially when, we were down at the end of the game after we were up by, I think it was 4 touchdowns. And just to come back, that kind of set the tone, I think, for our core group of players, that TCU game in 2011. So kind of set the stone. That's kind of the foundation we built off for the next 3 years.
That game against TCU at Floyd Casey was the year after they had hammered you, Baylor, up at Amon Carter, and basically made you rub your nose in it, right?
Yes, sir. I was, back then when you transferred, for a year. So I guess they owe me a year with the new rules now. But, that year I just remember because I came to that because you couldn't travel with the team, but it was a blowout. They had, I know Tank Carter, he kind of had a field day with us. And after that game, there was always a little bit of blood in your mouth that we had out for TCU.
And that's what makes it so unique with Kaz now being there, because he's the one that got into it with the fan, right? As they were walking out of the stadium down the tunnel to the locker room.
Yes, sir. Kaz, he's one of a kind now. Kaz, he's going to love you. He's going to coach you hard. He's going to speak his mind. But I do know he is a great influencer of young men, and what he does works. I'll tell you that 100%.
What did he catch you eating that you never ate again while you were there?
Oh, I did the chocolate chip waffles a lot. And I remember some days I loaded up and he'd come and just push his hand in that waffle and squeeze it as hard as he could and then just walk out and just leave it there like now you're going to eat it. And after that, you're just like, okay, all right. One day I thought about eating his face saying I didn't care, but I don't know. But no, he would do that to some of us. He'd see something, he would just walk up to your plate, take that big hand of his, squeeze it, and he would just look at you with the death stare saying, you know better. And we did. So,
Jordan, this is kind of off of just Baylor specifically, but as a tight end, how much have you enjoyed or been entertained by just the evolution of the position and the importance that the position has taken on in recent years? You wish you maybe would have played a little bit later to get a little more action, or just kind of what are your thoughts on the tight end spot as we've seen it grow?
Yeah, it's grown. It kind of started that evolution, in when I was playing, but now it's gone so much where some of these guys are so dynamic in the pass game. The hard part is finding them with the attitude to block. It's the one thing about blocking is you got to have attitude. You can teach them technique, but now the way that they're used in the pass game and they're so skillful, a lot of these guys are leaner, twitchier, and so I say you see some of your biggest freaks on the team playing tight end, and it's one of those tough positions. And the hard part is at high school, you can't find a lot of guys because a lot of high school systems, they do what's best for their players. And so they'll either be a receiver, DN, and you just got to mold them. So it's all about projection, especially. And, if one of them turns out every 2 years good that you recruit, you're lucky. And what you can do with them and how it affects defenses, different formation groups, and all the personnel that you can do with them, it definitely drives DCs crazy. I do know that. They're what we offensively can do when they're on the field expands and limits what defenses can call, in my experience.
By the way, Jordan's down in Magnolia, near the Houston area, at Quanta Infrastructure Solutions Group as a project manager. What does that do? What's the business?
We have the largest lineman workforce, electrical linemen in the country. Our position within Quanta, there's like 200 companies, and we're a huge EPC, which is engineering, procurement, and construction, seeing a whole project from start to finish of management group. So with a lot of these utilities now given huge contracts, upgrading for instance, like you've seen Hurricane Beryl here in Houston, where they're doing these huge upgrades to distribution systems or substations, especially in Texas. We are the management and one-stop shop for the client, which is these utilities. So
very, very interesting.
I'll take two. Well, I don't know if I need it, but just to help you out.
There you go.
Jordan, we had Bryce on the other day. You guys had, and he did in particular, an unbelievable chemistry with all of you guys. But as far as tight end, like you were, kind of the Swiss Army knife of that offense because of the way that you could block and the way that you could kind of covertly run little pick plays and not get caught doing it. All of those things. What was it about you and Bryce had a very deep chemistry out there on the field that just kind of seemed to click without you guys having to say much to each other?
Yeah, I think with Bryce, we came in at the same time because he gray shirted, and I had to sit out that year. And we went through the whole program of scout team, the Agogi off-season training. So we roomed together. So to start off my career, we worked together constantly. And when you start that feedback then, and then obviously he had to take his time to get to the position he was at a year or two, but he was constantly watching and always asking questions. And he was in that tight-knit group of all of us. So, when we were outside of football, we were still talking football 24/7 or what we were going to do. And I think that's where most of your growth happens within teams is these nowadays, a lot of these players, I don't know how much they get together outside of the locker room, but that's where your true bonding and true talking ball, what we're going to do here and all that stuff, how you continue to enhance in my experience and grow. And that's kind of what shows out there on the field. So
I know it's been a matter of time where, a lot of people have moved around and gone different places. Kendall Browse has bounced around now at TCU. Jeff Lebby's bounced around now at Mississippi State. How often when you're watching a game, though, nowadays, do you see the influences of what you guys were doing back then all across the country on Saturdays, whereas it was more, you guys were kind of stereotyped as being almost gimmicky back then.
Yeah.
And
niche
now
is the fancy way to say it.
Yeah. And now it's like it's what you see all over the place.
Well, you look at it like Lane Kiffin, he's running most of the stuff. He learned it from Kendall and then also Lev. And then you got Heupel at Tennessee. People don't realize that Lev was calling it when they were at UCF and we were playing against them when we were at Tulsa. And Heupel's carried those same principles. And I think a lot of people get confused with the wide splits and the deep shots. It's all about the run game and finding one-on-one matchups. And I think when people finally it clicked in their head of how simple it can be, and then you take your shots, but you've seen it grow. But it takes a lot of, because it's outside the box and people doesn't think it can be that simple for them to go all in. And when you go all in, you look at all these top offenses, and a lot of them are running some variation of what we've done. So it definitely is great to see. And I'm just glad that we were part of it and kind of started the trend.
Yeah, and you were one that was a hammer for the offense, and there's no doubt what you did. But whenever you did catch a pass, did you go back to the huddle and go, throw it to me more? Did you get to be a diva?
I wasn't, because I looked around and you had Antoine Goodley, you had Terrence Williams, Kendall Wright, Tevin Reese, Levi, these guys that ran 4.25s. And I was like, if I'm going to get on the field, I better learn how to block. And that was my thing. And I wanted to be a part of a team and just bought in. And that was my role. Browse, gave me a boost of confidence and everything where I had a spot, something that I can make my own, and I went with it. And that was the biggest opportunity and life lesson I've learned and taken with all this stuff is that, your role may not be what you like. It may not be the glory and getting all the stuff, but it's a role. And to do the best you can at that job every day, every play.
3 times, all Big 12, by the way, at the tight end position for Jordan Navar.
Jordan, you mentioned about that offense being all about the run. TCU has struggled to run the ball this year a lot. They have just this last week, I don't know if you saw them, but they kind of went back into the old Kendall Browse archives and put Savion Williams in the Wildcat and just snapped to the ball and said, go that way.
Mm-hmm.
How much did that look familiar to you?
It did. And that's just being innovative, where if something's not working, knowing that doing what's best for the players and adapting. And that's kind of what I think is having that high school coach's mindset where a lot of this offense comes from is where you take what walks in that door. If the players can't run the system that you think works like they can do in the NFL because there's so many good players and they mold, you find something that works for them. And you've seen little different tricks that we've done over the years, and I think Kendall is just doing what's best, and that's the established run game. Because if they know you're going to throw it all game, that's great here and there, but you don't get those one-on-one matchups for the deep shots, and that's where big plays and momentum happen.
Jordan, we going to see you running the Baylor line this weekend?
No, I've already tore one Achilles. I don't need to tore the other. So,
Bryce Petty said he's already had one notable trip and fall that he wasn't going to run the Baylor line either, but I am asking everybody. But, yes, that's 0 for 2 now on the guys we've talked to.
There is a couple. I think Troy's running it. Troy Baker maybe. I hope he doesn't tear his ACL. But, no, I'm not. It'll be me and the wife and the 2 kids, and it'll be great for them to see all that, and we'll get there early. I know my son, he's been talking about the 2-year-old Nixon, and it's cool when you have these kids where they get to see something that you're a part of, and and so we're excited for that.
Who's the best athlete in your family?
If you consider my wife's side, it's my brother-in-law, Sam. He's the best athlete. On my side, it's just me, so I'll take that.
Sam could play now. He was an underrated defensive back and made some plays. And
He's
obviously, yeah.
People don't realize he was a 4.4 guy. So
I did not know that.
Sam also predated the targeting rule, so that was good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the rules that has changed is the transfer portal, and you know that, and you came from Stanford to Baylor. You kind of wish that would have been different when you did that, when you could have played right away?
Yeah, it was. It was a different environment. I remember thinking I was going to be – it was back then it was 1 year guaranteed, but it was 2 you had to sit out if the coach didn't sign off. And I remember when I was in Harbaugh's meeting room trying to get released,
oh boy,
he was only releasing me to Texas schools to go home. And that's where I wanted to go anyways. But you had that thought in the back of your head because he was trying to convince me to stay because I was going to play a lot for him. And if he wants to really, which he's not that type of person, but that was the effect back then. It could have been 2 years. So it is crazy. I'm glad these players have the opportunity to leave, go where they want, but also it made me have to sit a year and learn more. Wait my turn, be patient, develop more. I think these players now, if they don't get the instant gratification a lot, they make a rough decision. And so I think it all worked out in my favor. Obviously, I wouldn't change it now. But it definitely would be nice to have an extra year or 2 there.
What was it like once Baylor announced there would be this celebration for this weekend, whether it was this week or whenever, but once they did say there would be a 10-year, 11-year, coming back to look back at the championship teams, how much like text messages, and I know you've been kind of one of those that say, hey, why aren't we a part of that? What was that like?
I think everybody just felt like a big sign of like welcome back. And, it's like when someone opens your door back to you. For years, a lot of guys, believe it, like it or not, felt kind of casted out for everything that happened. And it's understandable. You look back and you learn from situations and understand you can't change that. And so all we can do now is go forward, right, and do the best we can with what we got in front of us. And Baylor opening their doors back, wanting us to come back, celebrate, and let us know, hey, we do appreciate you. That's a great first step. And I think the guys are just happy that this will lead to more of us coming back in the future, being around and welcoming.
Did you ever feel not unwelcome?
There was a couple years, but also at the same time, you look back at it, you felt like you were mad at a situation. So maybe I didn't handle something the best I could. That's all I can control is what I do. And so as I look back at it, I could have done some things better probably and understand where Baylor was coming from. But at the same time, we're just glad now that we're in this place. That's how I feel. And that's all we can ask for.
So what did they offer you as far as 2 tickets, like for you and your wife, or how has all that been set up? Because I've seen numerous players saying it's gone really well. And so what was that like? What are they doing?
Yeah, so we have the lunch. They're doing obviously a ticket for you and +1, and then you have tickets to buy. They're all putting us in the Magnolia Suites. Dave Miranda's done that, and I thank you for him on that. We got a lot of family coming, so we're lucky to bless where we know some people to get extra tickets in the suite as well. But they have the luncheon for us Friday night, the Hall of Fame dinner. I believe we're getting the individuals inducted as well as our teams at that banquet dinner. Saturday, this is us off script. A lot of us are playing golf, about 20 of us out at Ridgewood. And then we're going to George's for, getting everybody together for an event to kind of tailgate and see each other even more. And then at the stadium, they'll have the recognition and various access to all the Baylor line running and all the different parts of the stadium within the Magnolia Suites. So
what have you seen from this team? They're 4-4 after being. It's been a tough couple of years after they had that great team in 21 and then fell apart in 22. How often do you get to watch them, stay up with them, and they're trying to pull themselves out of a ditch right now?
Yeah, I think they're starting to come together. I think Sawyer Robertson, he's a really good quarterback. Believe it or not, I was one of the first to offer him at Tulsa back then. I've always been a fan of him. I think he's turning it. He's a great man. He was a great quarterback at Lubbock Coronado. And to see him come back to Baylor and do good, I think people are going to be really pleased with how he progresses. He's starting to find his groove. So these last 2 games I've been able to watch, they're doing good. Obviously, they had the close loss to BYU and Colorado. Those are tough. I remember it kind of reminds me this team could be like us in 2012. We lost a lot of close games in 12 early in the season, and then we found our hit our groove. And I think that's what they're doing. I think if they can finish out and end the year 8-5 on a high note, you're looking at something special next year.
We asked Phil Bennett that on Monday to compare 2012 surge to possibly, not sure yet, but it could be something similar.
Yep. Yes, sir. And that's how I see it. You lose these close games, you learn, and now that they've got the win over that hump, it feeds momentum and confidence. So I think you could see a little run here, and hopefully they just keep it going. But with Sawyer throwing the ball and distributing better and everything, that offense scoring points and defense making plays and turnovers and that run game, I like what I've seen so far.
Jordan, what's going to be like to be able to see former players and coaches, and a lot of them for the first time in a long, long time?
It'll be emotional, I'm sure. It'll be emotional. A lot of hugs, a lot of just, yelling, telling stories, introducing, seeing each other. A lot of us have all different families now. And so a lot of us haven't seen each other since weddings a few years ago. So just getting back together and trying to make this weekend to where we spend all our time together. There's a lot of coordination, and I appreciate everything Baylor's done, and also a lot of my teammates coordinating these off-script things for us to get together. So it will be an exciting, jam-packed weekend, and it will be emotional. That's the one word I'll say.
One of our viewers, I'll close it out with this, S. Michael DeHart. He goes, tell Jordan, a West Virginia fan, he knows exactly what he does. My dad was a Class A transmission and distribution lineman for Appalachian Power Company in West Virginia for 38 years, Texas Power and Appalachian pre-owned by AEP. So he just wanted to say he knows what you were talking about. So
yes, sir. We do a lot of work for AEP. So
thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck. Yep. Have fun this weekend. It's great to see you.
Appreciate it, Smoak. Thank you all as always. Talk to y'all later.
Jordan Navar with his former Baylor tight end, was at Stanford for a year, and part of that coming back with the 13 and 14 teams. You hear all the things they're doing, the luncheon, the Hall of Fame deal Friday night, then they're having that tailgating on Saturday afternoon, afternoon, and then, of course, the game that night. Did not bring up the fact that you lost a job because of Jordan Navar.
No, I think the more interesting part of that, though, is the reason we started asking around was, and this is, Baylor tight ends were they didn't catch a lot of passes, right? So, but Phil Montgomery and Art Briles told us, you and me, Phil Montgomery on the field when we were walking out, but Briles said it in the press conference about how important Navar was, and they had a big game coming up, and there wasn't really anybody else who could do it like he did it, so they were really concerned about it, and you and I were both like, huh? What? And then, and Phil Montgomery really expanded upon it, and he's like, no. You have no idea what all the different things that we do with him and how he gets it compared to everybody else.
Yeah, he's kind of a glue. He was kind of a glue, even though you had all the glitz and glamour and the big offensive lineman, that what he could do. Yeah.
So I looked into it, and that look. But I was going to say, Jordan's wife and I were in a wedding party together. Kyle Cornish and his wife's wedding. That's her best friend, and Kyle is one of my dear friends. We talk pretty much every single day. So, but yeah, we go back a little bit. Me and Navar.
Holly.
Yeah, Holly. We did not want, like, she was the maid of honor. I was not the best man. But even if that was the case, I probably wouldn't have made best man because Holly's considerably taller than me. So they like when they do wedding parties, they like to match you by height so it doesn't look weird.
She was an athlete, Paul.
Yes, I know. She was
an athlete.
Very much taller than me.
When we come back, I had a chance earlier today to visit with Navy football coach Brian Newberry. They had the loss to Notre Dame. He wasn't happy about how he felt like they just kind of hyperventilated. He didn't say that, but that's kind of what happened. And if he's have another game down the road, of course, Army later in the year, no matter what. His thoughts about coaching at Annapolis and much more in his time when he was playing at Baylor, recruited by Grant Taff and also Chuck Reedy and more. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. I had a delivery when I got home yesterday evening after the show. There was a box. I'd gotten an alert from UPS that there would be a delivery sometime around 6:30 or 7 on Tuesday, and there it was, with ribeye steaks and fillets, Wagyu beef, Wagyu ribeyes, and Wagyu fillets that I won in an auction last week at TexasBeefHouse.com. And, oh, by the way, they're going to turn right around and have another one November the 9th, an auction coming up. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com for more information. And then they also, the company that runs the auction, BidOnBeef.com, will send you an alert if you get signed up. They do that with me, and I'm like, last week I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be a part of this one. And then I got to be a part of it, and I'm glad I did because I got some great product from TexasBeefHouse.com. And a few extra goodies, some Wagyu ground hamburger beef, and a couple of other things that were in the package thanks to Samantha Duvall and the Duvall family. So, again, live auction coming up on November the 9th. It will start at, let me see here, 1 o'clock, a live auction. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund Fund. BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We're joined by former Baylor football player and Navy football coach, Naval Academy football coach Brian Newberry. I'm David Smoak. What's it like to represent and be a part of that great institution?
Man, it's an honor and a privilege. I really believe I got one of the best jobs in the business, primarily because of the kind of young men I get to coach here on a daily basis. And, I believe in the mission of the academy and what we're doing here and developing leaders and go out and be officers in the Navy and the Marine Corps and serve our country. And it's just really just a privilege.
I know you're coming off the loss to Notre Dame. They jumped on you pretty early. How has your team responded this week?
Good. Been a great week of preparation. Our message is always 1-0, whether it's after a good win or a loss. And certainly you learn from it and you get better from it and you move on. And hopefully that serves us better moving forward. But, it's unfortunate thing is it felt like we didn't put our best foot forward, but we got to learn from it and correct some of those things and move on. And that's one thing that's been really impressive to me about our football team this year is their ability to do that, to keep the blinders on and just focus on the task at hand. And they'll do that this week, and we're going to have to because we're playing a good football team in Rice.
No question, and they're going through the emotional week of a coaching change. Do you feel like last week was the big stage? You've played in big games before, Navy has, but was it almost maybe too much?
I don't know. I think I don't think the stage was too much. I think we pressed a little bit, and I think we tried to do some things outside of ourselves. The message all week was that it's not going to take something superhuman or a miracle to win this game. We just have to be the best version of ourselves, and unfortunately, we didn't do that really. In all three phases, and to take from the game as well. But I think next time we get that opportunity, having played in a game like that and learning from it, we'll be better for it.
Has this been a unique season because of what's happened with what you've done, what Army's done, what Vanderbilt's done? I know they lost last week to Texas, but everyone you hear about the Blue Bloods, the Alpha Dogs, and more and bigger and bigger and bigger, and everyone's going to be left behind. But that isn't, and maybe in the end this year that's the case, but that doesn't seem to be what we've seen this year.
Yeah, you're right. It's been a really interesting season. I think it's been a great season if you're just a fan of college football in general, and that's really what you want to see. And I think what the portal's allowing some of these teams to do is to go in and find some good players and just create a little bit of more quality than we thought that we might see. Obviously we don't do it here at the academies, but yeah, it's been a fun, exciting year, and I always want to see the academies, not just Naval Academy, have success, and it's a good reflection on all of us and great recognition. And so it's been an exciting year, and really pleased with what we've been able to do so far, and excited about these next 6 opportunities.
We've had you interviewed before, but when you came out of high school from Westmore High School, why Baylor? What was it about Baylor that you wanted to be there?
Yeah, you know what? My grandparents lived in Waco.
Okay.
And because of that, my grandfather was a big Grant Taft fan, and so of course so was I. I got a chance to go watch Baylor play Oklahoma at Oklahoma when I was a young kid, and just always left an impression on me. And I wasn't super heavily recruited coming to high school, and it was really an opportunity to kind of come up in the final weeks of recruiting. And so I was just really blessed and fortunate that I had the opportunity and be a part of Grant Taft's last recruiting class. And but that's what sparked the interest, and obviously private Christian school, great education, and not being too far from home, and so really it was a no-brainer for me.
I have a note from Chuck Reedy. I'm going to give that to you in a minute, but what did Grant Taft teach you?
You know what? Grant was a phenomenal human being. I think he treated his players like they were players before, or people before they were players, and just had a great moral compass. And it was always a lesson to be learned from anything that happened, during the course of the season. And just always appreciated how he treated the players and how he handled his business and ran his program.
Chuck Reedy, Brian was one of those players who always did what was right, hard worker, great attitude, great teammate. Had some injury problems, but also had a positive attitude and work ethic. Looking back, I can see he had all the qualities that made him such a successful coach. Hope this is a good year for him, too. Your thoughts about what that means to you?
Oh, it means a ton. It's awesome to hear that, and what's great about Coach Reedy is I get a text from him every week, whether we win or lose, just offering encouragement and a pat on the back, and my career at Baylor was not what I hoped it would be, and partly due to some of the injuries that I had and some things like that. But to hear him say that, it means a lot to me. I really appreciate that.
Well, you played safety most of the time, right? When you got there, you were a quarterback, safety in high school, one of those multi-sport studs.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, but I played safety at Baylor.
What was and then I want to get back to your team now, obviously, but yeah, I think it was part of a co-championship in '94 Southwest Conference. It was still then before the Big 12. They also went to the Alamo Bowl. Was there a specific memory at Baylor that still, even though you were there for quite some time, that still to this day might be your favorite?
Specific memory, my freshman year, winning the bowl game, the Sun Bowl, and letting Grant Taft go out on a high note was pretty awesome. That's one memory that I certainly have. And that '94 season was a pretty special season as well. But a ton of good memories, and a lot of those memories have nothing to do with the wins and losses, just the relationships that I made there. My best friend in life, I met at Baylor, and I still talk to on a daily basis. Lives down in Houston, and it's a great experience overall. Although the playing career wasn't what I hoped it would be,
right.
I have no regrets about going to Baylor, and met so many great people, and I was able to play for a lot of great coaches.
You were there at Navy, and then they made the coaching change, and you were the one selected to move on to run the midshipmen. What did that mean to you?
Well, it meant everything. I mean, I came here and I've been a coordinator most of my career, and really loved doing that, and didn't really consider, even being a head coach until, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And so having a little bit of time to start to wrap your mind around what that would look like, how you would run your program. And so had a couple of years to really think and marinate on that. And then to have the opportunity, not just be a head coach, but to be a head coach at the Naval Academy, really beyond my wildest dreams. And I've got to pinch myself coming into work every day. I really feel like I got one of the best jobs in the country. It's a joy to come to work. It's a joy to coach these players, and we have a tremendous staff here. So incredibly fortunate to be here. And again, just beyond my wildest dreams.
I asked you about coaching those young men, and you brought that up. What is it like, though, as far as you don't have to deal with knuckleheads, and that doesn't mean that there's not a mistake or two made, but I mean you're talking about the cream of the crop, man. Brian, that's got to be fun.
It is. You go out and we recruit nationally to find the right guys, the right fit here, and they're just to get into the school at the Naval Academy is a challenge in and of itself, and then to find the kind of guy that can play football in Division I, and then a young man that wants to and willing to serve his country, just makes them special and unique, and it's just a bunch of high character young men that are very ambitious. They're fun to work with, and not all perfect angels by any stretch, but we've got great young men and care about each other, love each other, and play for each other, and I think that's when all things being equal, that's a force multiplier for us, and I think that's the reason why we've had some success in this day and age of the portal and the NIL and all those things.
The offense you run, what we've seen Air Force run, what Army runs, and it's been tweaked a little bit, of course. What is that? What you hear about? That's the offense you need to run. Is that the offense you have to run?
I think so. I think, we got to be unique and different, in everything that we do here. And hopefully that's a little bit of an equalizer. The formula for us is to be able to run the football, obviously, and, try to keep our defense off the field as much as we can. But I certainly do think it's an equalizer. I love the system. We've kind of, the hire of Drew Cronick has been great for our program, phenomenal coach. And combining some of the things he's done in the past with the wing tee background and really marrying that up with some of the under center and gun triple options things and the things we're doing in the pass game, I think make us really unique and different. And you really can't define what we're doing. It's as different than anybody else in the country, and we're having fun doing it. And it's continuing to evolve week to week. So it's fun to watch.
The precision of it. The precision of it is, I'm old school, 65 years old, and I remember mainly as growing up and even playing that, there was the option, the wishbone, the veer, whatever. I just have always loved that, and sometimes wonder why more schools don't do it. And I know that when Miami's and the Florida States and them started to have such great speed, it's a little bit easier for them to defend. Do you feel like more teams should run it, or is it just special for certain programs?
Yeah, I think, if you're not better than other people, you need to be different than other people, right? Uh-huh. And like I said, you've got to be unique and different here at the academies, because there'd be some weeks where the talent level is somewhat equal. But the majority of our games that we play, and our players understand this, we're playing against teams that are a little more talented, a little bit bigger, a little bit faster. And so what can we do that's unique and different is really important, the schematical part of things. And but how we do it is really what I think what sets it off, with the intangibles, with the effort piece of things, with the discipline piece, the toughness piece. And so you combine those two things, and what you see is some pretty good results. You,
as a defensive coach, when you had to defend a team that ran it, was that like you didn't sleep at night?
Yeah, a little bit. I've fortunately, my coaching career as a coordinator, going back to Kennesaw State, we ran the triple there. And so you got to see it every day in practice. You really got to understand the details and the nuances of what they're exactly trying to do. And so when you defend it every day, you've got a unique understanding of it. You try to get ready for it in a week. It's really hard to grasp all of it, and so I love going against it. I think it's a chess match, and I always love the academy games because of that.
I saw where Kennesaw State, they had a long drought, and then they got Liberty last week, I think it was. It was a great win for them. Do you keep up with all the teams where you've coached before?
Absolutely, especially Kennesaw and Brian Bohannon. I'll give you an opportunity to come up there and still know some guys on that staff, and great people, great coaches. And it's been a tough transition for him, but he's a heck of a coach. And to see them have success the way they did, see him keep his team together despite a rough start, was awesome to see them get a win over Liberty.
You are now the head coach at Navy, but you also have been a part of the Broyles as a finalist, the award for the best assistant coach. Was that an honor for you to be a part of that?
Yeah, sure was. I got here in 19, and that was a pretty magical year for us. Went 11-2, and the nomination for that was just a result of our team's success, and we got better defensively. But yeah, it was pretty deal to be recognized, and good recognition for our program and for our defense that year.
We mentioned Notre Dame. That game's over. You clear it. Go 1-0. Your team now has a chance to still have a very special year. How difficult, or is it, to go and face who you have next, but also know that everybody wants to watch the game at the end in December? And, of course, there's been a lot of chatter about that there could be a couple of them with Army-Navy.
Yeah, and I don't think it's difficult at all. I think this team's got the right mindset, and we're focused on this one, and we know we got to take it 1 week at a time to have an opportunity to reach our goals and win this conference is a goal of ours. And then we've always got that game at the end of the year, and we'll be ready for that one, I promise you. But we're not thinking about it right now.
If you had something to say to Grant Taft right now, what would you say to him?
I would just say thanks. He was a phenomenal role model for me. And I tell people all the time, I got into coaching because of the impact that coaches had on me. My high school coaches like Grant Taff, and really got to know Coach Taff more, after he was done. He lived there in Waco. He was the president of the AFCA.
Right.
I got a chance to work with him out at his lake house and really, love those times that I had to spend with him and just talking about life and not necessarily just football, and so just a great human being. And I know he had a tremendous impact on a lot of people, and I could only hope to have, slightly the impact that he had on me with the players that I get to coach.
You play Rice on the road, and they just had a coaching change. It's part of the game. Does that change how you prepare for them this week?
No, I don't think so. It makes it interesting, that's for sure. You think you expect to see a team that's got a little extra juice, that may be playing really inspired football with kind of nothing to lose. And you see these coaching changes happen in the middle of the season. You see teams go out and win games, right afterwards, despite the disarray that it may seem that they're having. But they're a scary football team. Really good on defense, very capable on offense. Has a really good quarterback that we've seen a couple of years. Obviously transferred from Temple to Rice, so we're very familiar with him. And they played really good football, the last 2 weeks. And so it's going to be a big time challenge for us, and our players know that.
Try to paint a picture of right now Annapolis, Maryland, and what it looks like right now.
Well, I've got a pretty nice office, and it's all glass looking out over the water. There's a bunch of sailboats and yachts, and it's about 70 degrees and perfectly sunny out here today. Beautiful day in Annapolis.
Ryan, you're a class act. Good luck. My father, 1953 graduate of the Naval Academy. That's Craig's grandfather, who does a show with me. Paul's dad was U.S. Army, so we have a lot of love and a respect for anything, the academies. But I remember walking that campus back when I was a kid, and we lived in Virginia for 4 years, and golly, what a beautiful place. Great people, great institution. So proud of what you're doing there, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Brian Newberry, head coach at the Naval Academy on 365 Sports.
Got beat by Notre Dame, went over that. They turned the ball over quite a bit, but having a heck of a run at the Naval Academy. And Rice is next, and, of course, that game down the road, but there's more between it with the cadets at Army. That is such an incredible tradition. When we come back, we have the Four Corners Big 12 pod looking at Utah and Arizona State, and pretty hot Colorado. That's next. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, got this hot off the text message from the CEO, General Manager Ted Teague. Right now, the new Fiat 500e for $149 a month, lease $1,500 down. The new Dodge Hornet with exceptional financing of 2.9% for 72 months. If luxury is what you want, they also have that with the Jeep Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer. I've driven both of them, and they are special. It comes in the short wheelbase version or the long wheelbase version, the size of a Suburban. Only thing better than these two vehicles is the financing, because right now you can get 3.9% financing for 72 months along with massive savings. And then the trucks, 20% off, 2024 Ram 1500 or 0.9% for 72 months. The deals keep coming, 20% off MSRP on a new Gladiator, 2.9% for 72 months, with over 375 new trucks and new and used cars, trucks, and also other vehicles on the ground. Bound to have a car for you. Ask for David Gray, General Sales Manager, Ted Teague, GM and CEO. Loop 340, Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Get
ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
All right, here we go, Big 12 pod. We are running a little bit late. We have Zach Gelb around the corner from Infinity Sports Network. Let's start with the team that deserves to be won here. Colorado and Deion Sanders, bowl eligible, good for them. Heck of a performance over the weekend, beat Cincinnati. Shador, Travis Hunter and company, they took care of business.
Yeah, they don't control their own destiny as far as it goes with playing in the conference championship game outside of just continuing to win. Obviously, they need some help there, but bye week this week, which means that you can take a rest and watch hopefully some chaos. I mean, right now they're big Texas Tech fans. They're big anybody who's playing BYU fans to get back in that mix. Big a couple other people to beat Kansas State fans. They need all that to happen, for them to, not all of it, but some of that to happen for them to get a shot at it. But here they are ranked, making some noise right now. And no longer is it there's, all sizzle and no steak. They've got some of that. Now they still have a ways to grow, but they are, they've got their stars are leading them to wins, and they're playing so much better on defense. So yeah, they're going to be a tough out each and every week.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter's very close to booking his trip to the Heisman ceremony if he hasn't done that already. Shador's playing great and probably getting overshadowed a little bit, but he's been fantastic, and that defense is legitimate. And you thought maybe that wasn't the case early on and that it was more of a flash in the pan, but they've proven now through, nearly 10 weeks of action that this is a legit and improved defense. So there's a lot to like about them. They've got a lot of weapons that teams have to account for and normally don't have the ability to account for all of them. And I think the big thing for opposing offenses is it's really hard to go against a team that's great at man coverage because of what it frees up the rest of your defense to do. And with the corners that they have, and obviously Travis Hunter's right there, they have the ability to go play man-on-man with pretty much anybody and free up others to make plays. So that's a definite strength of theirs is that cornerback play. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about them. They're for real. They're not a national title contender, but they're definitely a Big 12 conference title contender, and they do need a little bit of help, but they've got 4 very winnable games remaining in front of them. Now, you've got to go to Lubbock, but you've got 2 weeks to prepare for that, and I think that with your offense, you feel pretty good about probably being able to throw it around a little bit, but we'll see. That's a couple weeks away, so they'll heal up and try to, I'm sure, block out a lot of that outside noise, but they're sitting pretty and good to see them in the top 25.
Arizona State had a chance to take a deep breath. They've had a nice run, 5-2. Conference losses at Tech and then also at Cincinnati, but wins against Utah. KU in conference play. they've had a chance to kind of, again, decompress, and now on the road against a team in Oklahoma State that does not want a Big 12 game.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is Sam Leavitt being back and healthy, ready to play after missing a couple of weeks. He's definitely their guy, and to see Jeff Sims these past couple of weeks, you see the drop-off. Now that Sam Leavitt's some Heisman contender, but again, he's clearly their best option. So to have him back is a definite bump from the last we saw them prior to the bye week when there were questions about his timeline. So now going to Stillwater, you took a trip right before your last game was a trip out to Cincinnati and a close loss where you didn't have Leavitt. Now you're back on the road again, and we'll see if they can't change their fortunes. Going to Stillwater used to be a huge obstacle for a lot of people, but this year at least that's not been the case, and just beating Oklahoma State in general hasn't been. I don't just feel like Arizona State waltzes in and wins this game easily, but I am leaning their way a little bit, although I'm not fully convinced this is just an Arizona State win because I don't think Oklahoma State's that bad compared to them. You know what I mean? So
no, I don't think
this is a toss-up to me this weekend, but Leavitt being back definitely improves their chances.
Yeah, there's not a gigantic gap. What I would say is Leavitt being back improves their chances, and the fact that Cam Scadaboo walks this earth and Oklahoma State cannot stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God it's not like, hey, tackle this guy or the ship is going to sink, because the ship would be sinking. They are just not good at that. So I'm leaning Arizona State here, but I don't think that Arizona State has this gigantic talent gap that precludes Oklahoma State from getting off the schneid here. I just think that it's a bad matchup with that particular thing because, Arizona State doesn't really have to have Sam Leavitt, throw the ball around the yard if Cam Scadaboo just does Cam Scadaboo things.
It's interesting when we bring up a team, someone's lost 5 in a row, lost 4 in a row, because if you blink, you burp, whatever, and you get off kilter, you could lose 4 in a row. And Arizona, coming off 4 consecutive losses, their Big 12 record is also a mess. They're on the road against UCF, and, of course, they're in a funk right now. So Arizona, the Wildcats against UCF. Arizona at 3-5, they need to make a run to become bowl eligible.
Yeah, this is pretty much the same thing with them. Is everybody talks about the quarterback and wide receiver and not much else, but they've definitely been riddled with some injuries on defense in particular, and that's hurt them. They had a valiant effort against West Virginia, and McMillan and Fafita, definitely hooked up and had some big moments in that game. McMillan finishes with over, 200 yards on 10 receptions, which is pretty ridiculous. But, yeah, they tried to make it a game there at the end and fell short, and this streak just continues on with no end in sight. Really, I think Brent Brennan's, a guy who's just kind of struggling to find the footing and find the right identity here in this first year. And that's why I was always very hesitant to just go Arizona, they got these guys, they'll just be what they were last year. They changed coaches and staffs and everything else. But you got your quarterback and wide receiver and some other players, you'll be fine. No, clearly there's a little bit missing from that magic of last year, whatever you want to attribute that to. And it can't just be a two-man show all the time, which is what it often feels like with Arizona football. So, yeah, that rally fell short. But I think, again, another toss-up game this weekend going to UCF. I feel better about UCF, even though they're struggling as well because they are at home, even though the bounce house hasn't been this invincible, fortress either. But I do lean Knights here. And I think Arizona's just a team, just kind of really wasting some star power this year as much as anything else. And that's the big disappointment is you had so many stars coming back, and it's all leading to potentially not even making the postseason, which is just not what anybody would have thought in the preseason at least.
All right, then we have Utah. And they're on a losing streak. Utah has now lost 4 games in a row.
And mercifully on a bye.
Yes,
there's no team that could use one more than Utah right now. They got to figure out what they are on offense. The defense still, pretty effective. But, if you're only going to score 7 points or 14 points in a game, you're not going to win much no matter how good.
By the way, have you seen the note that Isaac Wilson's not a guarantee to start?
Yeah, so there they are again. Yeah. Look, they had this problem last year too. They've got an A+ defense and a C- at best offense.
Yeah, I mean, they're just not very good, and the Rising injury threw them off initially, but there's clearly bigger problems than just Cam Rising being gone at this stage. Their defense has been pretty good still, but they had an issue here and there, and just offensively, they're so terrible. I mean, Isaac Wilson can't stop turning the ball over, and he's just not ready. And, like, the thing is, people want to poo-poo on him, and I get it, but, like, he's still a true freshman, too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, were we just going to crumple him up and throw him away because he hasn't performed well as a true freshman? I don't know what his future holds. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but I'm just saying it's way too early to just check out on him. But I do think you need to kind of change some things up because it's not working offensively for them right now. The ominous quote from, what was that, Micah Bernard earlier this week, I still don't know if there's been much more light shed on that, at least not that I've seen. But that was definitely a peculiar quote talking about that they know what the issues are, but they didn't want to say, and we're all respectful to the media, but clearly there's something behind the scenes that's going on that they're aware of and that they've identified, but they're just not sharing because it's behind closed doors. But what is that? Is that Kyle Whittingham's lost his touch? Is that, hey, Isaac Wilson sucks and he's holding us back? Or is that something else? I don't know, but they've clearly got some issues, and it's much bigger at this stage than just Cam Rising got hurt 7 weeks ago, and that's why we're still struggling. It's like, no, it's well beyond that at this point. But your staff definitely did you no favors, knowing that was a strong possibility given his history and having the automatic next man up being a true freshman quarterback. So you kind of walked yourself into this situation a little bit, and clearly they're not going to reach their bigger goals this year. That's been out the window for a while, but what can they scrounge together these last few weeks will be interesting, and I think a lot of eyes will be on changes and just kind of how this sets up for next season as much as anything else.
Arizona and Utah, 4-game losing streaks. Oklahoma State, UCF, 5-game losing streaks. Texas Tech's going to try to shut theirs off. They've lost a couple in a row, and they have the game at Iowa State. We're now joined by Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network national show. Just finished it. Joins us on 365 Sports. You heard us, Zach, digesting or trying to the Big 12. It's not always easy to do, but it appears as if there's separation, not quite enough to, like, these guys are going to play for the Big 12 title, but there is separation.
I think it's been a fun watch. It's like, here's what I wonder. Is there a chance the Big 12 gets 2 teams in the college football playoff? I lean so more no than yes, and I still think only one gets in. But, like, let's say if you have one of those undefeated teams, with how people play against each other and don't, one of them is undefeated going into the Big 12 title game. And then let's say they lose the Big 12 title game by like a field goal or like a point. Is the committee then going to keep that team out after suffering their first loss on the season? Then I would say no. So that's really the only path I think 2 Big 12 teams do get in. Before the year, I picked Kansas State, so I'm not going to back off that now. But the Big 12, it's like, it hasn't been great, but it's been good, and it's been a fun, enjoyable watch this year.
What is your opinion on the ACC by that same token? Because they've got, they're probably the league that's most likely to have a weird tiebreaker scenario as it plays out right now.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 is better from top to bottom than the ACC. But, like, Pitt's having an unbelievable season. They're undefeated. We know Clemson had that one loss to Georgia, but they haven't lost the game since. Miami has Cam Ward. So I guess it's possible what I'm saying as well, to happen in the ACC. But I would think that from top to bottom, the Big 12, to me, is a better conference, and I view them as a better conference than what the ACC has right now.
Zach, looking back at last week a little bit, what did you think of Pittsburgh and that mauling of Kyle McCord and Syracuse? I mean, the odds of having that many interceptions and that many pick sixes are so low, but man, oh man, for a game that was, really anticipated, that turned into an absolute bloodbath.
I had Pat Narduzzi on the show the next day, and I said, Coach, wonderful performance, but I'm actually disappointed because I thought that was going to be an excellent game, and I've never seen, like, it's one thing a quarterback throws 5 interceptions, but at halftime to have 4 picks and 3 of them be pick sixes, I've never seen anything like that. It was one of the more impressive performances that I've ever seen by Kyle McCord, and I don't mean that in a positive way, but that is maybe the worst quarterback performance I've ever seen out of an individual.
Yeah, and I hate that because otherwise it's been a pretty good year for him, right? Yeah.
And he's someone that's easy to root for because even though I didn't think he was going to beat Michigan last year, he was probably better than going to just Syracuse. And I know Syracuse of Fran Brown, right? A lot of recruits they get that they probably shouldn't be getting, and it's because of Fran Brown and also Elijah Robinson, a few others on that staff. But, it's a shame that that's the isolated spot what people are going to remember Kyle McCord for, because you're right, Smokey, it's a good job out of you. He has played well this year up until that point.
You mentioned Fran Brown and, of course, Elijah, but, we got to know him here at Baylor. You got to know him at Temple. I thought there was a moment when McCord threw like his third pick, whatever it was, and he grabbed him but he met him on the sideline. He goes, I believe in you. I'm not turning my back on you. Whatever he said, I just thought that was a really cool moment.
It was. I was shocked, though, that they didn't sit him down.
No, it was bad. He was, I thought that's one of those you turn your back and start wondering who your second, third, and fourth string quarterbacks are.
Like, honestly, it would have been more of a favor to him if they would have pulled him just because it was just a comedy show, for being honest.
Yeah, could have thrown in the white towel. It was bad. We're talking to Zach Gelb with us on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour on 365 Sports.
Zach, is this the time that James Franklin gets over the hump, beats an elite team, and warns the world, here come the Nittany Lions?
I'm going to be honest, I hate both of these coaches. I just can't stand them. You asking me this, would you rather see James Franklin or Ryan Day win? It's like, which disease would you rather get diagnosed with? These are two of the more insufferable coaches in college football. They are two fake tough guys. I guess I despise James Franklin more than I do Ryan Day. Like, Ryan Day just thinks he's cool, and he's not. I just think James Franklin is a jerk. But with that being said, if you can't tell how I really feel about this game, I do believe Ohio State's going to win. Ohio State has not shown me this year that they are great, considering what Tressel and Urban Meyer made it seem like this roster is. They got talent, but that game up against Oregon down the stretch was embarrassing. They almost lost to Nebraska last week, but I think this game means more to Ohio State because of the fact they already had that one loss. Penn State loses this game, they probably still get in the college football playoff, but you get to 2 losses, you then start to get in that line of, hey, you're really close to be getting left out of the college football playoff, even with the parity this year.
Yeah, or the name on the jersey, right? Ohio State or whoever. I was stunned last week. They jumped out, looked like they're going to separate and win 37-10. They could not run the ball when they needed to run the ball. Now, Nebraska's defense is pretty good. Otherwise, Indiana would disagree. Mm-hmm. But I was surprised they weren't able to push anybody around last week against Nebraska.
It was stunning. And I give credit to Matt because your team got embarrassed and his team got off the mat. And if that team is maybe playing next year, they probably do win that game. And hey, Nebraska made some mistakes in that contest as well. But that was an Ohio State team that they just did not look like they had a killer instinct, even though I think they're going to win this week up against Penn State. And I think it's going to be by 4 points or, maybe 7, 24-20, 27-20. We don't know the injury status of Drew Aller as well. But that Ohio State team, they keep on telling you, hey, we're great. Hey, we're unbelievable. And they haven't won the Big Ten championship in the last 3 years. They haven't beat Michigan in the last 3 years. So they have, even though the record still looks great each and every year, they've taken a hit from where they were under the great Urban Meyer.
Zach, what do you think the highest hurdle that Ryan Day has to cross to make sure he keeps his job? Because they almost lost to Nebraska. They're getting Indiana coming up. I don't know, that's Indiana's biggest test. They could lose in the first round of the playoffs. Would that make the Ohio State fans mad enough? Because, they've been very vocal about how much money they spent on the roster this year. I think it's $20 million. They kept saying it for them to say, okay, this is just not working out. Let's go get somebody else.
And I know Indiana has the quarterback issue, and that game's not played tomorrow. In a few weeks from now, maybe I'll change my tune. If that game was played tomorrow, I'd pick Indiana to win, just because I think they're a mentally tougher football team. But to answer your question, he has to beat Michigan this year. That's the only way I see him getting fired, because people in the Ohio State community would be like, oh, if you want to get rid of Ryan Day, who else are you bringing in? So he has to beat Michigan, especially with how dysfunctional Michigan looks. on the offensive side of the ball. But for me, they were a championship or bust team entering this year. Now, I say that I don't think he's getting fired if they make the college football playoff and they beat Michigan. But if you can't beat Michigan this year, what leg does he have to stand on when Michigan could throw Smoaky at quarterback and they may be able to move the ball, quite frankly, a little bit better than what they have right now?
Zach, we're getting into that time period where we're going to see some of these late SEC non-con matchups. You got Mississippi State's playing UMass, Oklahoma's playing Maine, and we know they play one less conference game. And the argument's like, well, they're so good that they don't have to play as many. Where do you stand on the uneven number of power conference games and the late in the year kind of bye week with the buy-in game, so to speak, that the SEC features as much or more than anybody else?
I get why they do it. Like, they could say whatever they want. I understand why they do it. With that being said, now since it's not only 4 teams going into the college football playoff, it's 12. I would like to hope that in the future down the road, they don't schedule those games. But am I going to expect some big seismic shift? No, because you still want to provide a cushion in there at the end of the season going through the rigorous schedule of the SEC. So, like, is it enjoyable for me, the consumer? No, but I understand why the schools do it and they schedule it.
What were your thoughts as a Mets fan of the Yankees fans trying to take Mookie Betts' glove, arm, wrist, and everything else off last night?
I laughed. Don't get me wrong. If he got hurt, it would be terrible.
Yeah,
I'm not saying what those fans did was correct, but the fact he didn't get hurt. And this World Series has been rather boring if you don't have a dog in the fight with what it was built up to be. I thought it was actually a moment where in society now you either have to be right or wrong. And if you're wrong, like, everyone goes after you. And so many people on Twitter are like, oh, why are anyone glorifying these two jackasses? Like, whatever. If you're sitting there watching that and you can't laugh at it, knowing that no harm happened, I just think you're living a life on, like, kind of a throne of lies, if I'm being honest.
Look, I'm not I didn't go on Twitter and say anything about it, but as a Red Sox fan, I'm here for protection of Mookie, even though, because it's not his fault he's in LA.
Yeah, you hate the owners.
Oh yeah, it's the owners that sent him to LA. So I was mad about that. I just think that, it's just kind of stupid. Like, why would you do that? And the Yankees do kind of have this bit of it since Jeffrey Mayer, they kind of think, this is something we should do.
I think the fans were playing a little defense, as the one guy did say. But they're the stereotypical Yankee fan. Like, from an entertainment standpoint, if you ask me, and I live in New York, right? I grew up around a ton of Yankee fans as a Met fan. If you asked me to draw up a stereotypical Yankee fan, it would be that guy last night, larger fellow, right, with the ball cap on, looking like he's had a few too many and doing whatever it takes for his baseball team.
Zach, speaking of New York, what is the mood with the Giants and the Jets in a mess?
It's not even November, Smokey. You knew the Giants were going to stink before the season. The Jets are an unmitigated disaster. That defense is overrated. They got rid of Saleh, who's not a good head coach, and they got worse. Aaron Rodgers looking like a 40-year-old quarterback playing on one leg. That offensive line's problematic. Breece Hall's not having a good season. Garrett Wilson has 2 1,000-yard seasons with no name starting the ball. Now he gets Aaron Rodgers. They can't get on the same page. This is on Woody Johnson, and it's on Aaron Rodgers. And this partnership has been an unmitigated disaster. But since the Jets operate their organization kind of like how the Cowboys do, where it's all about the headlines, it's all about the drama, and it's not the wins and the losses, I would not be surprised if Aaron Rodgers, who has another year left on his contract, is back under center next year, and the Jets were sitting here talking to you October of next year, and they're once again one of the biggest jokes in all the NFL.
Zach, who do you think the Cowboys' next head coach will be? Because it's not, next year's not going to be Mike McCarthy. The Jones, and he's got 12 wins 3 years in a row, but the Jones family essentially pulled the rug out from under him by saying, hey, we're not going to improve the roster.
Yeah. I think it's Belichick right now. I think Jerry would get out of the way like he did for Parcells, and that would be having an expiration date. I think Belichick wants the Eagles job, and I don't think Nick Sirianni is someone that wins you a Super Bowl. So if I'm Bill, I would go to Philly. If I'm Philly, I would hire Bill, but I don't know if Philly's going to move on necessarily from Nick Sirianni. So if you made me take a guess today, I would say Belichick. And if not Belichick, I don't think Ben Johnson is going to go take the Cowboys job. So then I would say Mike Vrabel. I would go Belichick 1, Vrabel 2.
Vrabel, I forgot he's out there, isn't he? He's
a consultant on the Browns staff, one of those, capacity roles with the Cleveland Browns.
What are your thoughts? You mentioned Jerry, Paul, and obviously it looked like they had the good game plan. They had enough energy to take on San Francisco, who also is battling injuries with Ayuk out. And that game Sunday night, that was a game Dallas had a chance to win when they cannot beat San Francisco. That's been their 800-pound gorilla. What do you see with either one of those teams?
So I call them the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. So that tells me what I view of the Cowboys. And I said before the year the Cowboys were going to miss the playoffs. With that being said, in a moment of weakness, in a moment of me being stupid, I actually gave the Cowboys the benefit of the doubt. I thought they were going to win the game. I really did. I just thought the timing was right with all the injuries that you mentioned. I know the Cowboys have been banged up, but the injuries were a bigger storyline for the 49ers. They had a good start, and then they allowed, 24 unanswered or whatever it was, and then they got back in the game. So it was the ultimate tease. Like, hey, we'll tease you from the start, then we'll get railroaded, then we'll tease you and get you back in the game like they did up against the Baltimore Ravens. But then when the game was on the line, your big-time quarterback should have been intercepted on the first throw that he threw when you're paying him that much money. Mm-hmm. So I think this team doesn't believe in the coach. The quarterback is good, but he's not great. And when he has to be clutch, he can't be clutch. And you mentioned it. The biggest problem is Jerry Jones, all in. Skip Bayless said it, all in, pause, my ass is what he tweeted out there. This owner right now, he did not put together a football team that is good enough to go on out there, in my opinion, to make the playoffs and beat a team. I know they're not elite this year because they have problems with the 49ers, but they're perceived to be on paper one of the more talented teams in the league.
Zach, thank you. As always, buddy. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Matt and the Huskers looked like they had a chance. You and I texted each other that afternoon, and then, damn it, they couldn't close. Couldn't close.
Smoky Saturdays. I feel like we've been texting a lot on Saturdays, and we got a little insight on whatever college game is annoying us.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, thank you, buddy. Infinity Sports Network, good friend of the show, with both college and other sports, including the Mookie Betts and fan. Not interference because he caught it, but some NFL notes, too, with us on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, Levi Caraway, Garrett Ross, always helping do many things that not just what we do live, but also then what we put out with the segments we have like that one, or Brian Newberry, or Jordan Navar, Taylor McCark from earlier today. Tonight at 10:30, 365 Sports Tonight on the CW. We'll have that and more. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com. Ideal MRI, the location, the business inside the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in the southern part of Waco. A state-of-the-art imaging machine. If you have a pain, if you have something that just doesn't seem right, if you've talked to your doctor about it, whether it's your family doctor or orthopedic surgeon, and they have brought up an MRI that they want, they know, and you can remind them, if you need to, about Ideal MRI. One, they have state-of-the-art imaging machine. I love their staff. The Texan specialists are great. And $497 or less every single time. $497 or less every single time. An average MRI is probably now above what I have been saying for quite some time at $1,100. I've been inside that machine, that imaging machine. I have been to their business before. Great people. They will contact you once your doctor recommends an MRI. They contact you. You get an appointment set up. And when I've been there, I believe the longest wait, it's not like inside of a hospital system. I believe the longest wait has been maybe 15 minutes or so. That's it. Not 45 minutes or an hour and a half because it gets you so many people. It gets you in. They get you looked at. They get the imaging. You walk out the door, and they will send that to you and also the doctor who requested an MRI at IdealMRI.com.
one-size-fits-all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Is your car ready for a makeover? Get ready to fall in love with your ride again at City Tire and Battery. City Tire and Battery is family owned and has provided expert service with top quality products since 1942. And with financing available, there's no reason to put off those much needed upgrades. Give your car the love it deserves and go see City Tire and Battery, located at 1502 South Valley Mills in Waco.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports, this 5 o'clock hour. Paul's top 5 is just around the corner. Chat room today is, I haven't been able to get a good read on it. I normally can go in there and say, okay, I can either see who's arguing, and that means it's always somebody. Not really a read. There was a nice feedback on the AP Top 25 poll and some of that too, but have not been able to get much of a read on what has been the main topic so far for discussion today. So Paul Catalina, David Smoak, Craig Smoak here on 365 Sports, and the Big 12. The teams at the top have long winning streaks, so yeah, you're going to have somebody at the bottom who has long losing streaks. I could never have fathomed that Oklahoma State would be on a 5-game losing streak within the conference or otherwise.
Yeah, there are obviously deeper roster issues there. I think sometimes you got to listen to look at it, especially with Mike Gundy, like what's the other layer? But I mean, he's been very candid about the fact that, they have what they have for NIL and that's it. He's not, and there's only a few programs in the country that kind of do that. Like, well, whatever it takes, call this guy. They don't have that. So he didn't get in the portal for a quarterback. He felt that none of that was there. And the bigger problem is that they didn't have a good defense anyway. And I think he knew he probably didn't have the budget to get 7 guys on defense. This is probably what they needed to help that defense. So you just kind of hope that it goes your way and that you can cover some things up. But then they lost their best defensive player. Their offensive line, which is supposed to be veterans, didn't play very well. And so your offense is built around Ollie Gordon, makes him seem a little bit less than he was a year ago. So all these things kind of happen at once.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising, but it is what it is. I mean, they're on that streak, and it's a matter of how they climb out of that. I will commend Ollie Gordon for saying that he's not going to quit on the team and he's not going to start doing what some other guys would probably do after a long losing streak and go start getting ready for the NFL, even though people would certainly understand that if that were the case. But he said he finishes what he starts, And I appreciate that about him, and I think that'll be something that you tack on to the scouting report as opposed to those guys who like you saw the thing about Teteroa McMillan and his body language the other day with Arizona, and they asked him about it. And so when teams are struggling, that can lead to some issues with especially your star players and them looking at the next thing that's up. But that's not the case with Ollie Gordon, so that's definitely a benefit. I don't think Alan Bowman has any eligibility left, so that's another benefit. And I joke, but I mean, certainly some of the stuff's been his fault. Not all of it, though. And he actually played pretty okay against Baylor the other day, even though he'll still throw a couple balls where you don't know, like, what even sport he's playing, because it's just like literally anybody in the crowd could go in there and do what you just did and just throw it randomly to no spot where you know what I'm saying? Like, so he does stuff that's just puzzling. But, it'll be really interesting to see how they close. I mean, there's some winnable games on here, but there's also a very real possibility that they could lose out. And, we're entering uncharted territory with Mike Gundy right now.
Well, and they're hosting Fight, Scratch, and Claw, right, with Arizona State coming off a chance to take a deep breath. And so, if they have a 10 or 12-minute where they just aren't locked in or whatever, they could lose another one to Arizona State, the Sun Devils, and Kenny Dillingham. We've discussed quite a bit about the Big 12 teams that Baylor had as champions in 13 and 14 being honored this weekend. Paul, what do you remember the most? Craig arrived in 13, about the time that Baylor made that run. You had been here even before I did in 2010. What do you remember the most? Not how cold it was for that game against Texas, about the 13 team.
About the 13 team, I mean, they just they took everything that they had done the year prior in 12 and rolled into it. Bryce Petty was the perfect personality to kind of lead the team on offense. You saw it. I mean, he had a great sense of humor. I mean, he's got this kind of all shucks way about him. They were really quite together when it came to everything. And they just also, I think that even though because people probably weren't watching as much towards the end of the year run in 12 set them up well for 13. But I do think that people thought, okay, well, RG3 was gone. That's the only time they're going to have a good quarterback. Florence is fine, but you saw what happened early in the year. So that's not really, Baylor, kind of fell back into being Baylor and got lucky at the end of the year. But that wasn't the case. They took it and ran with it and showed that they were someone you had to be afraid of.
They scored 69, 70, 70, 73, 71, 59, and 63 points to start the year off at 9-0. It's insane. Iowa State, 71-7. The West Virginia game, when their defensive coordinator said it was a catastrophic failure. The shootout with Tech at AT&T Stadium. Beat Oklahoma 41-12. That was the night game, the blackout game, when they just pummeled them, even though I think Oklahoma started out with a safety and a field goal to take the lead early, pummeled them. And then, of course, went to Oklahoma State, and they laid an egg. Got hammered. They were down near the goal line early in the game. Bryce Petty tripped, would have walked in. Then they fumbled at the goal line. I think it was a fourth down anyway. And then Oklahoma State just boat raced them the rest of the way. What I remember the most is that 2013 and 14, both were really good teams, highly ranked teams, and neither one of them could finish the bowl game. Mm-hmm. Neither one of them. They got beat up early by UCF, and they were always trying to come from behind. And in 2014, they choked their guts out against Michigan State.
Well, it was kind of similar things that happened. That team was very cocky and confident and played with a chip on their shoulder, but sometimes it could fall off. And in 13, they had a blast. Nobody had more fun leading up to the bowl game than the Baylor players and the coaching staff. They'll admit that to you. They had a lot of fun. They celebrated. And look, they had earned that, but also there was a cloud hanging over of Art Briles going to Texas potentially. And there were no hard answers on that until the game was over, and they eventually had hired Charlie Strong. But, there was that back and forth that hung over it. In 2014, that was a team that, I actually thought in a lot of ways was better than the 2013 team, but all the things that could catch them up all hit them as soon as they got really cocky about that game when Laquan McGowan caught the touchdown. Laquan McGowan caught the touchdown.
You're talking about the Cotton Bowl.
Then the Cotton Bowl against Michigan State. And it seemed like they got really, okay, this one is if a 400-pound guy is going to score a touchdown, we can do anything we want against Michigan State. And then Michigan State turned around and just did the little things and made just grinded their ass off to get that win and do it however they could.
Well, they also had the blocked field goal.
Yeah.
They had the long return down to near the goal line, called back. Corey Coleman face mask, a wide receiver, 15 yards down to the 1. So there were some things that happened that were a little bit strange. But again, Baylor could not close out either one of those games. They didn't even have a chance to close out UCF because they were not focused, locked in, maybe excited about being there after winning the Big 12. I don't know. But I'm telling you, Blake Bortles looked like the Heisman Trophy winner in that game for UCF in that win.
Yeah.
Craig, you going to make a comment on either one of those teams, 13 or 14?
No, I was just reading an update from the Big 12 on the helmet comms thing. There's more details coming out.
All right, go ahead and give it to us.
Came out on that. Earlier today, it was reported that the Big 12 was requesting all of the schools send their helmet communications back. Obviously, it's the first year they're doing that, the player-to-coach systems. And they did so because they received word that there was a problem with the encryption and that I don't know all the technical verbiage, but basically that there were issues with the helmet comms and being able to hear in on, I guess, the opposing staff or the possibilities of that being there. So that was kind of all that was known. There was no specifics, although there was there was at least a Texas Tech fan who had made mention about it, and that got picked up by the message boards account. You know what I'm talking about? They always peruse through all the message boards. So they posted that, and this was accusing Baylor of having tapped or whatever, so that there was an issue with that. And that came out this morning, I guess, that post, and then here you are throughout the rest of the day, and there's been a couple of these reports. So there was some validity to whatever that person heard in terms of there being a communications thing. But here's more on it. Texas Tech athletic director Kirby Hocutt said he raised the issue during a call with Big 12 ADs on Tuesday after learning that the Red Raiders helmet communications were unencrypted and accessible to anyone with a scanner and knowledge of how to locate the frequencies. So if somebody did stumble on this, this is Connor Stallion stuff. I don't know if opposing teams travel with a scanner hoping to find these frequencies or how any of that works, but so they found that there was that opening and that I guess it was possible for others to hear them if they had the right scanner and frequency or whatever. So the Big 12 then turned around and instructed the 10 schools playing this weekend to send their devices back to the, I guess, company that makes them. And they're the same company that provides it for all of the Power Four. So there's a software update that they were going to be uploading that would provide encryption, according to ESPN. The modules and cutoff switches are expected to be updated and returned in time for Saturday's game. So that's being worked on. But here's the part of it that's, I guess, the juiciest. Texas Tech requested a report from the Big 12 on its recent games against TCU and Baylor to ensure the integrity of the games were not compromised, and the conference is accommodating that request. Kirby Hocutt says, we've got to have a game whose integrity is not questionable in any way on a Saturday afternoon. We owe it to the 120 young men on our football team to ensure that happens, that it's a game of fair competition and the same set of rules are enforced. It goes on to say, no schools have made specific allegations that their in-game was accessed, and many throughout the Big 12 and Power 4, from staffers to coaches, have questioned whether there's even a competitive advantage that you could gain because of the different language being used and all of that. This all stems back to A&M and Arkansas, and when the discovery was made from a frequency coordinator on the same issues back then when they played in Arlington, And now you're seeing all these conferences come out with statements saying the SEC's checking theirs and the Big Ten's checking. I mean, it's the same company does all of them.
Yeah.
From A&M and Arkansas in that first issue to now where Texas Tech is saying we want proof that I guess there was nothing nefarious in our last couple of weeks. And the Big 12 has accommodated that. So the Big 12 that said that this wasn't brought up until Tuesday. Following the Tuesday call, the Big 12 sent the memo to ADs and coaches acknowledging that someone with intimate knowledge of frequency scanners and the GSC system could hear communications. That was from Scott Draper, the chief football and competition officer. So the 4 conferences are going to meet next week, meet weekly, to discuss next steps and the path forward. And they'll talk with the head equipment managers and relay information. But as an interim step, they've changed frequencies while the software gets updated and completed. And in hindsight, the conference should have shared. So I don't know what that the conference should have shared.
Let me ask you a question. The Red Raiders helmet communications were unencrypted and accessible to anyone with a scanner or whatever. How'd they find that out? What? How do you?
Someone with a scanner checked them, and then found that they were unencrypted, and then found out that there was no encryption, maybe on all of the ones that were sent out. Now, what they would have to prove, and this is maybe a little different than Connor Scallion. Well, not really Connor Scallion's, but it would be, they would have to prove that somebody was in a press box, like with a frequency scanner going, hey, they're about to run the trap again. Like that, that's what they'd have to do. And that I don't know, or unless you were just like on the comms and all of a sudden just heard like the other side calling a play and you're like, well, I'm not going to say anything, but I'll make some notes.
No one has been accused of anything, but this comment in the report, Texas Tech has requested a report from the Big 12 on recent games against TCU and Baylor to ensure the integrity of the games were not compromised. Isn't that kind of a little bit of an allegation, or is that just because those are the 2 most recent games that they've played?
Well, they clearly feel like there's maybe something nefarious there. I can also see why you're searching for answers to have it not be that we just got beat by TCU and Baylor, because that would save you some face in the midst of a lot of backlash over just kind of the losses. But Mac Rhodes could not be reached. Jeremiah Donati was reached. Our football coaching staff and I were made aware yesterday of the player-to-coach helmet comm issues around the country. As with any other inquiry, we look forward to assisting the Big 12 in its review process. The SEC's talked to all their teams about the security update and have been paying attention to the issue, but there's not a high level of concern over communications being compromised. The Big Ten's aware of the conversation, say they've not had any issues, and they're updating their technology. ACC said they've been tracking this same issue for nearly a month. At no point have any ACC teams expressed concern to the league office. They all had the ability to send in equipment for updates, which some have taken advantage of. ACC officials do not have a significant level of concern because no programs have expressed concerns and all have continued to use the system throughout October. And final thing, officials, Max clearly was working on this like all day today. Officials from the P4 were assured by experts the risk of vulnerabilities was low, but a source at one Big 12 school said that his staff purchased a scanner earlier this month upon learning of the potential vulnerability and was successful in locating their own coach-to-player comm frequency during a practice, but there are mixed opinions on whether a team can actually gain a competitive advantage from the opposing coach-to-player comms. So there's a bit more to it, but
here's what I would say on that.
Chief of Staff, Big 12, there's no real advantage. 1, you're speaking a different language. 2, if you think you'd be able to enact in real time what they say and try to do it on the field, you're delusional. You're just being your Wow, Big 12 Chief of Staff going off here. You're just being
who's saying that?
It says one Big 12 Chief of Staff argued, so it doesn't name it. There's no real advantage. 1, you're speaking a different language. 2, if you think you'd be able to enact in real time what they say and try to do it on the field, you're delusional. You're just being your stereotypical paranoid football coach. You can't relay it to the kids fast enough.
Well, yeah, because, look, there's only one helmet on the other side, right? So you have to tell your middle linebacker in real time when it cuts off at the same time on the play clock what they're saying, and then hope that he can tell the other 10 people what's going on. This is different than sign stealing, where if you practice enough, you can You can go, okay, I know that, and then you tell them, look for this, and you yell out over, and you put your picture of Daffy Duck up there, and they go, oh, okay, they're going to run this play. That's different than at the same time as someone saying a play, you having someone listen to it and then relay that information in real time to the person that has the comm on your side.
Yeah, Mac's tweet, it does look as if it's accusatory. Texas Tech requested a report from the Big 12 on its games versus TCU and Baylor to ensure the integrity of the game was not compromised, and then gets into the unencrypted part of it, too.
And apparently, if this is all known around the country, everybody else has been kind of dealing with it, but Texas Tech's the one that's gone and made it as, I guess, as public of a story to where, like, he's attaching their helmet to the actual story itself, and that's where that message board post came from, was Texas Tech earlier today. So, yeah, clearly this is really, I guess, stemming from them today as much as anything else, and you can take that however you want to. I take it as a legitimate concern, although reading some of the other quotes, people are like, it doesn't matter, like, what are you talking about? And I also do think it's probably like hoping that it's true, because then you can be like, well, that's why we lost to Baylor by whatever the final was. I can't think off the top of my head. And that's why we lost to TCU. So I'm sure there's some hope on their side that that's what hurt you in the end, I suppose. But, yeah, that's clearly where this is all stemming from today, is from Texas Tech, in particular Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Because they're the only school that's being named in any of these things, and the only school that's throwing out allegations, I guess, or they're not saying they're not accusing.
It's not. They're not.
But they're kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like
the way it is in social media, this will be like by 10 o'clock tonight. It'll be 10 times more accusations.
By 10 o'clock tonight. By now,
yeah.
I'm just scrolling now, and I mean, a lot of people are making jokes about it, but like getting rid of sign stealing to introduce frequency stealing was one that I saw. But again, like, I think I agree with that Big 12 chief of staff. Now, if there's someone out there who spent some time over the weeks figuring out how to do it, I mean, golly, like Connor Stallions is falling behind.
Well, the big joke is that this is typical college football, that you did something to get away from sign stealing, only for signs to be stolen potentially in a different manner with the way that was supposed to be the solution. So, yes, this is very college football. It's also very college football to accuse the other side of cheating. It's also very college football for the other side to cheat. It's also very college football for just something wonky like this that shouldn't be an issue to become an issue. So, yeah, they'll look into it, but this is all stemming from Texas Tech, even though the other leagues have apparently been talking about it this entire time, or at least for the last month. But this is directly, Kirby Hocutt raised the issue of unencrypted helmet communication in a Big 12 athletic director meeting on Tuesday, and specifically mentioned that they want to look into the Baylor and TCU games. So that's not accusing, but it's getting as close as possible as you possibly can.
Fan bases will run with that one way or the other.
Oh, yeah, there's Watt Mills.
There's two or three threads in Sikkim365.com about it. The Big Lubbock in the chat room, Texas Tech's disadvantage is not in the helmets. Instead, it's the head inside of one of the coordinators.
See, I appreciate that because, one, it's funny, and two, it's true. No, but that you can make light of it because it is so college football, of course. But, yeah, there will be their fans that automatically take this as absolute fact and as the only reason why those games ended up the way that they did. There will be an investigation into it, I suppose, or I guess I don't know how all that's going to work, but they'll look into it, and if there's some merit to it, then good. But if not, then Texas Tech got the damage done they wanted anyways, because now at least some semblance of people will believe that's why they lost a couple of games that they shouldn't have lost. In reality, they should have beaten TCU.
Yeah.
And in reality, Baylor did the same thing to him 2 years ago in Lubbock, and it wasn't an issue there. So it could be nothing. It could be something, but Texas Tech is clearly the one that's pushing this forward, and it's now become a thing all across the college landscape today, where everybody's now talking about it and giving their own versions of how it's gone in the power conferences. But this all started with A&M earlier in the year in that Arkansas game where they had issues, and we didn't really hear anything about it until Texas Tech here has re-raised the issue. But you wouldn't have known it was all these teams were looking into it, if not for Tech. So it's an interesting story.
Baylor and TCU are 9-7 combined. So obviously they haven't been doing this all year long, if in fact there's someone trying to try to point fingers at them. But no, I get it. I get why Kirby Hocutt would want to know. maybe some stuff. I also get why the chief of staff of the Big 12 will say this, stop. But they do need to kind of tie the bow up. The encrypted or unencrypted part, that's above my pay grade. When we come, by the way, can we use whatever they're talking about that we can or not here for our high school football sideline, Mike?
Their stuff's expensive.
Yeah, I know.
I told you, there's a way to do this, Smokey. It just costs thousands and thousands of dollars now.
It costs $400.
It does absolutely does not.
When we come back, Paul Catalina. Well, one thing with Craig, he's got to talk about one of our great sponsors, but we'll have the top 5 in a moment.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. Right now, we got Halloween on deck, and they have savings so big that they are downright terrifying, but in a good way. They got the Scary Savings event going on right now. Pre-owned cars and trucks at Richard Carr with thousands marked off, and that includes the 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks. All GMC Sierra SLT trucks in stock right now. You can save $8,000 on those vehicles, and you can find Sierra trucks under $40K all over the lot. So that is just one of the many deals they've got going on during the Scary Savings event. If you're looking to get into a GMC Sierra SLT and get thousands in savings, check out the Scary Savings event right now over at Richard Carr. They also have the all-new Buick Envista in stock right now at Richard Carr, starting under $24,000. It's a car and driver's editor's choice, so just another model, another brand to take a look at over at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, in addition to the GMC Sierras. And another one out there, the quick, spacious, and fun Encore GX. It's a versatile SUV priced for everyone. Right now you can save $5,000 on a new 2024 Buick Encore GX. So those are some of their various offerings when it comes to the new vehicles, but of course they've got a lot full of quality pre-owned vehicles, cars, trucks, and SUVs available as well. And if you're not even in the market for a vehicle, they've got their award-winning service department that I've experienced firsthand as recently as a couple of weeks ago when I needed some major repair to the front of my car after hitting a blown-out tire in the road that was just sitting out there. Couldn't avoid it, caused a pretty good amount of damage. Richard Carr's got it back to looking new. So whatever you're looking to do, buying new, buying pre-owned, or just getting your car fixed up, treat yourself with the new cars or trucks and find monster savings at the Scary Savings event, or just go and check them out in person off Highway 6 and Imperial Exit and Richard Carr. That's KARR.com.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
Time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Another auction coming up soon. Our promo code 365sports for the next 3 days, and then Tuesday next week, I'm going to go through the top 5 disruptors of the playoff in every single power conference. We're going to start with the ACC, which has huge potential for a 3-way tie, and some other scenarios that could really get weird here in the last month. So number 5 disruptor is Hokie High at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech only plays Clemson of the teams that are still eligible, or not eligible, but in contention for the playoff. But remember, they only have 2 conference losses. So if they beat Clemson, and they'll put Clemson behind it a little bit and give them a loss, and get some help, they could potentially down the line wind up in the ACC championship game themselves. But that game in 2 weeks against Clemson is pretty huge for the Hokies if they can pull off the upset. Remember, they were a hair's breadth away from beating Miami, so they've been this close to being a disruptor already in that conference. Number 4, Georgia Tech. Here's what's interesting about Georgia Tech. They can affect 2 different conferences. They can affect the ACC because, of course, they're in the ACC, and they can affect the SEC because they play Georgia at the end of the year. Look, they already, broke Florida State's heart to start the season and sent them off to the worst season in their history. So they're already that way. But they have games coming up against Miami and Georgia. Both those teams are in the top 5 right now. So they have a chance for 2 gigantic upsets. Will they get them? Probably not. Will they be favored? But this is what college football is now. It's a big game of what ifs, and if you're having a good day and they can actually stick the landing this time, maybe, just maybe, we can have some real disruption up at the top through 2 conferences with Georgia Tech. Number 3, Louisville. They took the Miami Hurricane. Okay. Number 3, Louisville. They took the mighty Miami Hurricanes down to the wire and were a call again, like Virginia Tech, a call that could go the other way, away from maybe winning that game. But they have games upcoming against Clemson and against Pitt. Both those teams undefeated in conference play, and a loss would again put them behind it. So Louisville, if they can pull a couple of upsets here, not out of the realm of possibility that they could be an ACC playoff disruptor. Number 2, SMU. Well, this one's kind of obvious because SMU already, nobody expected them to be a big playoff disruptor. But this week's game against Pitt, who we'll talk about in a second, is a big one because whoever wins that game puts themselves in better position to wind up in the ACC championship game. But the other reason is that if they beat Pitt, they only have Boston College, Virginia, and Cal for the rest of the year. 3 very winnable games, although BC will be tough for them. But they can kind of sit back and watch the chaos around them, which brings us to number 1, Pitt. Everybody is confused at how they're undefeated anyway, but Pat Narduzzi and Eli Holstein and the whole team have been gamers all year long. But they have SMU this week, most important game of their season by far. But they also have Clemson coming up and then a potential visit to the ACC championship game. So if the ACC wants multiple teams in, they need teams like Pitt to keep winning. So we'll see what happens. But the ultimate playoff disruptor that came out of nowhere is Pitt, and the Panthers have a great opportunity to really wreck everybody's expectations. That's the top 5 for today. Tomorrow, we're talking Big Ten. This is 365 Sports. We bid you adieu in about 30 seconds.
No, it's going to be more than that because if only we could record what is said.
I really hope the mics were not on.
If they were, this is our last show.
No, I think this is just a different. Barstool will hire us tomorrow.
No, they would, yeah. What would you do as a fan of the teams that, for example, Paul's Florida State Seminoles, Nebraska's been bad for, it's been almost over a decade. What would you do that otherwise you could never think about doing? What would you do for 8 or 9 wins in a year?
Look, at 1-7, this is a place I never thought I would see, especially so soon after 13-0. So at 1-7, it's a good thing I'm married and I have somebody tell me hey, it's not worth it, because if I wasn't and it was a possibility, I'd be like, you know what? Let's get down and dirty. I don't have any shame.
I mean, we obviously don't, because of what we said during the break, and Emery had his phone out recording it and could make all the money he wanted off the 2 of us. All right, thank you to our guest, Taylor McCarg. Thanks to Brian Newberry, Zach Gelb, and also Jordan Niver. Tomorrow, back at it. Too bad that Max is out tomorrow because he's got a Halloween party for his kid, so he's not going to be able to join us after the story today about the comms, the helmets, the communications in college football and what's going on with that. But we will have plenty to get to. Dave Bartu will join us, college football matrix, and much more. Troy Baker, former Baylor offensive lineman.
He's running the line, the big dude, but I think he's lost a lot of weight. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, thank you. 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 app, and Twitter at 365 Sports Y2. For Garrett, Emery, Paul, Craig, I'm David Smoak. Thank you for your time. Have a great night. This is 365 Sports.